have happened, that the processes that need to be followed to recoup those monies ensued, but that can only happen as a result of an investigation that gets presented to us, and then we can take whatever steps that need to be taken internally in Parliament.
The Hawks in Limpopo have secured asset forfeiture orders worth more than 1.5 million rand in cases of illegal mining, rhino poaching and illicit cigarette smuggling. 6 people were arrested in separate cases dating back to 2021 linked to the crimes committed in various locations across the province. The assets forfeited to the state include trucks, trailers and other vehicles allegedly used in the commission of crimes in Sekhukhune, Hoedspruit, Musina and Etok. Authorities also secured the forfeiture of 32 tons of chrome believed to be connected to illegal mining activities. Hawk spokesperson Wendy Ngabi.
In appeal, police identified a truck loaded with chrome. The driver fled the scene. Investigation
speaking to Mondli now.
Used without the owner's knowledge. The court granted Section 51 order for the truck and trailer and a forfeiture order for 32 tons of chrome valued at 52,200 rand. The Limpopo Provincial Head Major General Advocate Gobs Gavenda said, throughout asset forfeiture investigation, we remain committed to ensuring that crime does not pay by stripping criminals of the proceeds and instrumentalities of crime.
The case between the South African Revenue Service and its former commissioner, Tom Moyane, has been put on hold. The matter was stood down in the Pretoria Magistrate Court today because Moyane's legal counsel is sick. SARS is trying to recover costs from Moyane relating to litigation and travel that were heavily criticized by the Nugent Commission. The case is expected to resume tomorrow. SABC News economics reporter Nosipho Khadebe has the details.
SARS is seeking to recover about 400,000 rand linked to litigation and travel that was heavily criticized by the Nugent Commission. The costs relate to a 2017 trip to Russia taken by Moyane, in which no report on the purpose of the visit exists. The Commission was also critical of litigation pursued under Moyane's leadership concerning allegations contained in 2 books. It found that some of the legal action appeared to advance personal interests and discourage scrutiny in the Revenue Service rather than serve the interests of SARS. Nosipho Khadebe, SABC News, Pretoria.
Government has used Africa Day to call for unity while reminding everyone living in South Africa to comply with the country's laws. In its Africa Day message, government acknowledged mounting pressure from unemployment and poverty, saying they continued to test livelihoods and social cohesion. Against the backdrop of tensions around migration, government stressed that South Africa is governed by the rule of law and that all residents are expected to follow legal processes. Authorities are urging South Africans to use Africa Day to celebrate the continent's shared heritage, promote social cohesion and strengthen partnerships. A Taliban spokesperson in Afghanistan has refused to answer a BBC question on when or whether girls and women will be allowed to go back to school. The Taliban government banned education for girls over the age of 12 and women shortly after it seized power 5 years ago. This woman told the BBC she had been robbed of her education and had run away from home to escape marriage.
Before the ban, my parents passionately encouraged me to study. They believed in me and told me I can definitely achieve my dream of becoming a pilot. But now they say the best way for me is to get married. Because I can't go to school, to university, I can't even work. I'm afraid if I return to Daikundi, I will be forced to get married.
Recapping the top story, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, Bridget Masango, says the next steps that Parliament will take against former Minister of Social Development Sisisi Tolashe will be informed by the outcome of investigations that are currently underway. I'm Ondela Mbana for SAFM News Headlines at 3:30.
In sports this hour, Cardoso urges PSL management to fix fixtures schedules, and Colby returns to the Stormers. More details at 3:30.
Yo, how is your trolley so full these days, friend?
It's my way, Chomi. I save up to 40% on my car insurance premiums every month.
My Way insurance?
Yes! Now I have more money back in my pocket. Even though hubby switched to My Way. Manja, we're both saving, which means we have more money to focus on the things we love and live our way.
Savings after savings.
Real people, real cars, real savings. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. Premiums are risk profile dependent. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply. My Way. Live your way.
I saw you.
Have you discovered the TV license WhatsApp yet? We see you, binging reruns, living for the drama, loving the SABC Plus sports replays. Now, paying your TV license fits the vibe. Simply say hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060. Get your balance, make a payment, or set up a debit order all in one chat. No queues, no please hold, just convenience that feels like it should have been here all along. Because every screen in South Africa is a stage and yours is lit. So why wait? Send hi on WhatsApp to 077 6069 060 and get your TV license sorted today. Hashtag your screen, your story.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Guinea, West Africa. West Africa's resource-rich nation, with a coastline along the Atlantic Ocean, a land of rivers and minerals, home to the world's largest reserves of bauxite, powering global aluminium production. French is the official language, but Fulani, Malinke, and Susu shape everyday life. Voices that carry culture, history, and identity, bordered by Senegal, Mali, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea-Bissau.
Guinea gained independence in 1958, one of the first to break from French colonial rule. A bold decision that shaped its path, but the road has been complex. Political instability, economic struggle, and governance challenges. Yet, the spirit of the people remains strong. Music, storytelling, and tradition endure.
Guinea stands firm through every test. In every drum, in every story, in every voice, there is resilience. Guinea, rich, resilient, rising.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. SAFM. Prime time all day long.
The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m. X at SAfm Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, very, very special broadcast today. I can tell you now, I'm sitting in the lobby of the SABC, Radio Park, and I'm in between 5FM and Metro FM. Normally SAfm has a different studio, but we're at this lobby today for this very special day, because today, let me say it loudly, today is Africa Day, and there's no way, no matter who you are and what you do and what your age is and what language you speak, you cannot not be connected to the umbilical cord that is Africa, and in particular galvanized by Africa Day. So welcome to the show. This is the National Pulse. My name is Ashraf Garda. You are also connected as well to this umbilical cord of Africa on Africa Day by being connected to the show, but hopefully you will have lots more longevity even beyond the show. So thank you for engaging. I'll tell you what we're going to do. It's a special broadcast, so 3 hours of complete commitment to this show outside of things like sport and the markets and music and the news. Other than that, it is Africa in the first hour, Africa in the second hour, Africa in the third hour. And so we shall continue. We've got fabulous guests. Others will come up later on, including people like Professor William Gumeda and Sharmi Narayan as well. All of them coming up later on. And we've got 3 guests now that we're going to start with. But let me throw this question to you. Often enough, there's this question about what does Africa Day mean to you? And I'm really not going to even start with that because I think it's just so cliched, right? And we spend a lot of time talking about that. So let me throw this to you, the listener, wherever you are, in South Africa, anywhere on the African continent, anywhere in the world, listening to us via streaming live as well, right? Here's the point. It's Africa Day today, a day that was set up when the then Organization of African Unity pushed for this point of African unity. So now it's just called the African Union. But when that happened many, many years ago, that's why we mark today as Africa Day. So the big challenge for you and for myself and everybody else as well, Ron, what can we do to use Africa Day as a powerful galvanizing force to improve the lives of the people of Africa across the board? So I want us, if there's nothing else, yes, there are 100 problems, like I can bring them all up, but let's use this as a galvanizer. How can we use today to start the type of conversations, to kickstart them, to look at solutions so that we can improve the lives of all the people on the African continent? So let me be very clear. It's less about what are the problems, because there are many. It's more about what are the solutions, how do we galvanize. Now, to call in live when we open the lines, it's 086 000 2032, and then the WhatsApp text or voice note. If you're voice noting, 30 seconds, please, 0614 104 107. You got all of that, right? There's more to come. We're going to get to our guests right after this.
We asked rugby legend Francois Steyn what he thinks of the all-new Toyota BZ4X. France, would you say the BZ4X is a rugged all-wheel drive SUV?
Yeah.
Cool. Was the acceleration and handling good?
Yeah.
All right. So you think the BZ4X can handle South Africa?
Well,
there you have it. The all-new Toyota BZ4X, an all-wheel drive battery electric SUV made to handle South Africa. The BZ4X. It just got real.
A new, faster, smarter way to play the lotto is coming. Sizekaya is changing the game with the introduction of Shesha codes. Now you can pick your numbers on your phone, generate your Shesha code, walk into any participating retailer, scan it, and print your ticket instantly. No slips, no long queues. Just scan, play, and win. Fast. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The National Lottery is officially operated by Sizekaya from June 1. Mzansi, your your chance is finally coming home with Sizekaya. We're bringing back Lotto live draws. Experience the thrill live with real people, real wins, and real-time excitement. And the next number is 7. 7 is for heaven. Tune in every Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 9 p.m. Feel it, live it. It's here. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The National Lottery is officially operated by Sizekaya.
You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Right, so first things first, before we get to our guest and we talk about Africa Day, this message brought to you by the National Lottery, introducing a faster and smarter way to play the lotto, and that's Sizekaya. Get used to the name. It's changing the game with Shesha codes. Now you can pick your numbers on your phone, generate your Shesha code, walk into any participating retailer, scan and print your ticket fast with Shesha codes. A new chapter begins with Sizekaya. Players must be 18 years or older. Play responsibly. The National Lottery, operated now by Sizekaya from the 1st of June 2026. So that's imminent.
Ashraf Garda is streaming live now on Facebook, YouTube, and X at SAFM Radio.
Right, let's get to people, because I have my views, but let's get to the experts who know a lot more than I do, right? So first of all, I've got three guests. I want to introduce them all. Dr. Neo Ramawape, who's a historian, heritage specialist, African identity scholar. I love the triple identity, by the way. Much appreciate you connecting with us here on the National Pulse.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I noticed you were tapping away when we were playing the Salif Keita song with your red shoes.
Yes.
It was there, very tapping, very enjoying it as well. Lots of color in that as well. Right? We also then have the, no, in fact, we should have had Intobi Zodwa. We do, because we had to swap with the guests, right? So we have Intobi Zodwa Msane, who's a director for the African International Humanitarian Law Initiative. Thanks for joining us here on Africa Day.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Thank you. And in keeping, I've got the dull colors. You guys have all the bright colors.
We are balanced.
I certainly like the orange, the burnt orange, and the sunset yellows that stick out, right? In terms of the changes now, we've also got Mankitla Felix, who's a Pan-African networker, social commentator, and a young African voice. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Now, all three have this responsibility. As I said from the outro. So I'll start with you, because that's where we started initially. Without getting too romantic about Africa Day and, carrying a flag and waving, let's get down to the business of Africa. How do we use today as a galvanizing force for the betterment of the continent?
Thank you so much. Africa Day is so important historically from 1963 to today. I teach decolonizing African history at the University of the Free State in Bloemfontein, and I taught at VETS for 5 years. History of education, I have all races in my classes. What I'm teaching them is how other African countries have helped South Africa to be where we are today. As the government, we failed, from 1994, we failed to put that into the curriculum. Now, in 2026, the Department of Basic Education has put the new history curriculum on the public domain so that everybody, including ourselves, can comment. That's a step forward. That's very, very important. It's not romantic. People who are coming from Mozambique, who are coming from Zimbabwe, our South African people, who are poor, who don't have anything, they don't know what Ghana has done. They don't know what Frelimo has done. They don't know what Zipra has done with Mkhonto Wesizwe. We need to put those into the classroom so that when they go home, they can talk to their parents who didn't go to school. And all this madness can be managed, because we are not managing it.
All the madness can be managed. We'll come back to that in a minute. Intobi Zodwa, let's get your thoughts, just on that opening thoughts too. Using Africa Day as a galvanizing force.
Yes, thank you very much. I think the one important point of departure here is to have frank conversations about what is happening, and then realizing that we are so emotional about everything because historically there's been so much. And you rightfully indicated that there are so many problems. But in terms of finding remedies is that we need to find each other as Africans, in terms of being very real with each other, in terms of what is the fundamental issues that we are actually facing. How do we remedy that? How does civil society participate? How do young people participate? How do we all come together and actually voice out as Africans from a Pan-African perspective? This is what we want for the continent. Young people are struggling. How do we solve that? And indeed, education and awareness is important. Even our own constitution in the country, we go into the communities and still realize that a lot of people don't actually fundamentally understand how to apply it in their day-to-day life. So that is critical. How do we take some of the issues from a theoretical perspective and apply it in our day-to-day life?
Okay, and we'll certainly pick up further on those questions. Let's get to Mankitla Felix, right? Your thoughts?
So my thoughts pretty much from a business perspective, being that that's where I come from. It's actually, for me, I've realized that working within African markets, talking about Africa has become just an idea, right? And people don't understand that as Africans, there's so much we could do if we actually understand what partnership ecosystem means, right? We need to be able to work together, right, and move as one voice while we do that. Because like she said, you know, there's so many problems that we have, but the thing is, are we as the people moving faster than the systems that are supposed to help us or support us? So that is the thing for me.
So if the problems are moving faster than us,
correct,
then the problems are bigger.
Exactly.
We move faster than the problems,
correct.
then we can start
yes,
eradicating.
Correct.
How do we do that?
You know, I think also it's about being able to be receptive, you know, and by that and being accepting of understanding each other, right? And by understanding each other, I'm coming from a cultural perspective. Because remember, at the end of the day, we have to work together. You understand? And I realize, as a South African, we look at the rest of the continent and we deal with them from a distance. And when we move business, we look at the rest of the continent as an expansion strategy instead of a partnership ecosystem. And that is where the problem is. We need to understand that we need to work together as Africans, pour into each other in order for us to succeed, because that's the reality.
And some may say those questions have been asked or mentioned like 20 years ago, and we still have the same things. I want to bring you in, Dr. Neo Ramoape. Now, you mentioned, when I spoke about let's not be too romantic, and you made the point that we need to understand, certainly in the South African context, of the contribution of other countries. So, to rather sound naive, why does it matter?
I'm going to use this example to make my point. A week or 2 weeks ago, our President Cyril Ramaphosa visited our neighbor President Mnangagwa at his farm. All our leaders of the liberation movements are friends. They're friends to Frelimo, they're friends to SWAPO. They are at the top. But the people on the ground, they are fighting for the crumbs. This education is so important so that when you see somebody who looks like you, but when they start speaking, you attack them. You need to understand how they helped us to be where we are, right? It's very, very important that we need to understand that cultural liberation history.
When you say it's very, very important, why is it very, very important?
It's very important so that we don't fight each other. It's very, very important so that we don't fight each other. I'm also going to use another personal example. I have a Mkwenyana son-in-law who is Nigerian. I have a sister who's doing washing for my family, Zimbabwean. I have a brother who's doing garden for us. He's Malawian. These people, they have papers. Every Easter, they go home. We understand them. Thabo Mbeki's got his own friends all over the continent. Ramaphosa, all of them. But they don't take this message to the ground. Frelimo, SWAPO, ANC, I don't know who I'm forgetting. They need to come together. They can just fly to Johannesburg and go to these marches and talk to these people. It's the most difficult thing to deal with because we have to teach it. you know. It's the craziest thing.
Yeah, you wonder why do you think then, I mean, is it the responsibility of the leaders then to filter down? You say they're meeting at top level. Whose responsibility is it for people like yourself and I to meet up?
But as a historian, I'm 58 years old. I've never seen them really talking about it seriously. They are just reactive to it. Every time it happens, they talk about it, and after that, they leave it. It happened in 2017. I was doing research at the University of Ghana, Legon. Before I do my presentation, I'm South African. They asked me to talk about this. When 1994 happened, this is what Kwame Nkrumah did when Ghana became independent, and this is what Mwalimu Nyerere did when Tanzania became independent. They destroyed the colonial curriculum and start an African-centered curriculum that the Tanzanians, the Ghanaians should understand the continent. Our people don't understand Africa. When we travel, we say we're going to Africa because of the colonialism and of apartheid. We need to bring this into the classroom so that the kids can understand this and they can go home and talk to their parents so that what is happening really in KwaZulu-Natal should be managed. It's not managed.
Okay. Well, I remember Don Matera saying a while back, his book, Memory is a Weapon. So history, stories do absolutely matter. We're going to pick up more of those conversations and a whole lot more on this day, the significant day, Africa Day, and therefore we're having this Africa Roundtable on the National Pulse here on SAfm. But first things first, it's 3:30 news headlines.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the news headlines, more than 140 people have been arrested following incidents of looting, public violence and damage to property linked to the shutdown in Bloemfontein and surrounding areas. The bail application of the Northwest businessman Brown Mokhodzi has been postponed to Thursday for address verification. And Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson Ismail Bagay says although progress has been made on several issues under discussion in a possible memorandum of understanding with the United States, Tehran is not close to signing an agreement. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
This is SAfm Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. Just gone 32 minutes after 3 o'clock. It's 18 days until the FIFA World Cup gets underway. And today I'm going to focus on debutants of the tournament.
Made you strong, die, die, equal, darling, let's go, die, die, equal, darling, let's go.
Alrighty, we've got 4 debutants, and the first one is Curacao, which is a Dutch Caribbean island north of Venezuela with a population of just over 150,000, and it's going to become the smallest nation ever to compete at the tournament. Then there's Cabo Verde or Cape Verde, which will also make history as they become one of Africa's newest representatives as at the global showpiece after a breakthrough qualifying campaign that included a famous win over Cameroon. Then there's Jordan and Uzbekistan, who complete the list of debutants. Uzbekistan impressed through qualification with them having a Manchester City defender, Kusanov, who's playing a key role, while former Italy World Cup winning captain Fabio Cannavaro has brought added experience from the technical area. So it is Curacao, Cabo Verde, Cape Verde, Jordan and Uzbekistan. If you didn't know, now you know. Don't forget that you can catch all the action on SABC 3 and also you can catch the action on SABC radio stations and also SABC Plus. But still staying with football, what a sporting weekend that we had, and a big congratulations to Mamelodi Sundowns, who have their second star and are the CAF Champions League champions. They have bagged a record 110 million rand, and they also have a spot in the Club World Cup where they could potentially get a further 230 million rand. However, Sundowns coach Miguel Cardoso has continued to sound the alarm to those in charge of SA football, saying that there's a need to create a fixture schedule that can aid teams competing in the CAF Interclub tournaments.
Well, thank you very much for the question, but I think it's not really my worry now. Think about the future. That I believe that only commitment, that only models of work in the highest level, that groups of players with high capacity are the ones, and a little bit of luck, are the ones that can arrive here. I do. But I also believe that is important. If South Africa wants to have again one team soon or in the future, early future, in the Champions League, has to change some dynamics. And it's really important that those dynamics are changed to provide conditions. Look, today there's 3 players that are potential Bafana players that could not play. Tapel Morena, Aubrey Modiba, Batusi Albas. And they are not here because in the last month they were exposed to something that is not normal. And they also could not play a final and they could be useful today. They could have been very useful. So it's time for people that are in charge of the football in South Africa to really think what they want towards the development of the football in the country. And if they create conditions to really push the teams forward and push this club and help this club, I believe it's possible because the club will continue to work hard to lift the level and to develop. I'm pretty sure because I know the people ahead of it.
Well, this has really sparked a debate on social media with also Sports Minister Gayton McKenzie saying, listening to Cardoso, the coach of Mamelodi Sundowns, you will think everything is wrong with our league. He also says things without forwarding any proof. We're working very hard to bring in sponsors, and this type of nonsense spewed sets us back tremendously. And he even goes on to say that they're going to complain with Mamelodi Sundowns. I just want to also say a big congratulations to Orlando Pirates, and also we saw how Arsenal lifted their trophy this past weekend, and a great farewell to Pep Guardiola. But moving on to rugby, double World Cup winning Springbok star Cheslin Kolbe is reportedly close to making a sensational return to the Stormers. The experienced winger could join the Cape side by the 1st of July as part of the Stormers' long-term project 2029. Kolbe's possible arrival would be a major boost for the Stormers. This is after they lost out on winger Dylan Mott, who is expected to join the Bulls from Griquas after the Currie Cup. In athletics, Durban's vibrant coastline will come alive on the 12th of July when the APSA Run Your City Durban 10K returns with a world-class mass participation road running spectacle. Renowned for its fast and scenic route, the event blends elite racing with a festival atmosphere, taking runners from city streets to the beachfront with high energy entertainment and also activations and enthusiastic crowd support. Ending things off with tennis, 4-time champion Iga Swiatek powered into the Roland Garros second round with dominant straight wins over Australian teenager Emerson Jones. Swiatek, who is playing at a Grand Slam tournament for the first time since linking up with Rafa Nadal's former coach, Francesco Roig, showed flashes of her best tennis in a 6-1 and 6-2 victory. And next up for her, she takes on Czech Republic's Sarah Bešlek for a place in the last 32 on Wednesday. On that note, it is a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour.
Catch Top Billing this Thursday on S3 as Sosibini meets boxing champ Kevin Larina ahead of his world title defense. Fez, Jonathan and Ryle compete for cover story glory. SA lifestyle combines with French chic in a castle of a home. And rapper Gigi Lamaine talks legacy over high tea. That's Top Billing this Thursday evening at 7. Repeat Sunday at 1 on S3. Streaming on SABC Plus. As part of Africa.
From Cairo to Cape Town, Lagos to Nairobi, Africa lives here on SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, welcome back to the National Pulse on this significant day as we reflect on, well, the African continent on this Africa Day. A day, May 25, that reflects what happened, a significant moment in the history of the continent in 1963, by the way, on this day, right? So you've been hearing us, we've been talking about, and whereas it's important to reminisce and important to be nostalgic and important to understand the history, it's critically important that we're running out of time, and I mean that literally, so that we use this day as a galvanizing force for something even greater. Now, I want to throw that to you even now. So less about the problems, and there are hundreds, I know that. But can we just use today to say, can we look at everything as a key focus of what we can do next? And if yes, if that means putting pressure on the leadership of the nations of our continent, then so be it, because that's an affirmation. So can we do that? Now, I'll open the lines later on to get your thoughts. 086, because you can tell me how, okay? 086 000 2032. And then WhatsApp, you can text us. And then you can WhatsApp us with a voice note. If you're doing that, 30 seconds, please. 0614 104 107. By the way, if you're tweeting, that's great too. You can use that X platform, just hashtag the National Pulse, tag SAfm Radio, and tag me. And you can answer that right away. In fact, how do we use Africa Day as a galvanizing force for the betterment of all the people on the African continent, right? Right, so we've got the guests we've had. Dr. Nayo Ramoape was with us, who's a historian amongst many other things. We've also got Intombi Zodwa Msani, who's the director of the African International Humanitarian Law Initiative. We've got Mankitla Felix, a Pan-African networker, and we're now joined by a fourth person, and that's Molya Vundamina, who's a project officer and doctoral candidate in public law at the Center for Human Rights at the Faculty of Law at the University of Pretoria. Molya, in fact, now that I've got you here, let's get to you first, because I've asked him that question as well. Answer that for me. How do we use today as a galvanizing force for the benefit of all the people of the African continent?
I think today should just be a celebration of the African peoples. And it should be a reminder for everyone of just how beautiful the continent is. Because when I think of what makes Africa beautiful, I think of the different colors, I think of the music, I think of our history, and I think of our earlier liberation struggles, how united the continent was. So I think today it's important to just remind everyone of where we come from, who we are, and what we're capable of achieving together.
Okay. But in saying that, and you probably use the word just 3 times, I think, right? When you say just be this day of celebration. But is that enough to celebrate? Because I don't know if we're going to do that will actually help Africa's cause. Is celebration enough? Must more be done today?
No. So I stuck to today because you asked about specifically today, but there's a lot of work that we actually need to do as a continent. There's a lot of deep and heavy discussions that need to be had, a lot of sensitization of what's happening around the continent. And we also just need to start bringing different people together, because what I've realized is there's a lot of hatred amongst different African nationals, and looking at what's happening in South Africa right now, I think a lot of that comes from a lack of exposure and not knowing people's stories, not knowing where they come from, not knowing why they're in South Africa, for instance. So I do hear a lot of people say, but why can't they just speak to their government and tell them we don't like this? But that comes from a place of them not actually knowing what's happening out there. So it's a gradual process, unfortunately, but it's something that we have to do, I guess, every day. It shouldn't just be today, but it's something that we have to continue doing.
Yeah. I mean, certain days can act as a catalyst.
Yes.
And that's really what it is.
Yes.
What about, let's get your thoughts on this, Mankitla Felix, about, when I speak about a catalyst, is there anybody doing just that already?
You know,
it could be individuals, it could be governments, it could be organizations.
Right. I think the change starts with us individually, right? And I think this is actually what you just said actually kind of touched me, because as a South African, I've always been fighting for my rights in my own country. And from a diaspora perspective, I grew up as an international student. So this moment is very emotional to me because I lived abroad my entire life, moved to South Africa in 2004, went to Cape Town. And you know, I think the saddest thing for me was getting there and not being accepted by my own people because I was different. I spoke different, right? But instead, the same international students, those were my home. They were relatable to me, you know, and it was a matter of, because I am different, therefore I am not one of them. So when you speak about change, and I think one of the things that have pulled my career to be where it is and why I keep on pouring into Africa even more the older I get, is because these are my sisters and my brothers. These are the same people that when we're together and we collab, we do amazing work together because there's no discrimination. It's because I understand their culture, they understand my culture, we have mutual respect for one another as Africans. Gone are the days where we look at the rest of the world or the Western world where we need to get, feed on to what they're doing so that we could feel relevant, you know. When they say, Africa, your time is now, it is now, but you need to believe it. You need to be part of that change. You have to want it, you know. And remember, like Dr. No said, unfortunately, we can't wait for government to do those things for us. You need to be the change.
Have we been waiting for government?
I think that with everything that has been happening in South Africa, with the history and everything like that, to a certain degree, I feel like there's this expectation. There's this expectation where people don't want to take accountability for their own lives. Because at the end of the day, as Mankitla, I refuse to be defined by a situation. I refuse to conform by society's norms, because at the end of the day, I'm my own brand.
I wonder, where do you fit in on this? In terms of what I asked about, who's doing the galvanizing? Specifics. Are there people, organizations, governments, institutes?
Yes, I believe the civil society is playing a very critical position in terms of trying to bring people together, in terms of advocating for basic human rights, making people understand why that is important for us to uphold the fundamental laws of the country, but also understanding that as Africans, we all are linked from a history that is oppressive, and because of that, we're needing to work with each other, understand each other, and then find ways to remedy these issues. Because as much as we have the challenges in our communities, we have lived amongst foreign nationals with us in the communities for years. We don't have formal structures of refugee camps in the country. So we have been very welcoming, and it has been a very, joint venture in terms of this process. And I think it is just unfortunate that corruption seeps in, opportunists seep in, and then it murkies the water for everybody. And because it murkies the water for everybody, it becomes a challenge when you're trying to address that we are not xenophobic. We are just saying that there are things that have been happening that we haven't been able to address fundamentally. And there's people who are of the line of thought that human rights is great, but to what extent are their rights superseding ours as citizens, and when is enough enough? And, Dr. Nell was saying education is critical, which is very valid and true, because we are fundamentally about that, educating, advocating, raising awareness. And then community members are saying, but we are not being heard, we are not being understood. Where do we draw the line? And when there's discrimination, then we need to start speaking about why. Why is there discrimination? Are we misunderstanding each other because we don't sound the same, we don't look the same, our cultures are different? That's something to be celebrated.
I'll tell you what, you said so many things, and they're all very, very important, of course. Let me bring in once again then, that of course is the voice you've just heard of Intobizodwa Msani, right? Let me bring in Dr. Neo Ramoape once again. Now, here's a test case. We all are Africans, we live on the African continent. But in terms of our mindset, the African from Nigeria and the African from South Africa and the African from East Africa, Kenya, they're not the same. I'm looking at the Kenyans who are celebrating Arsenal Football Club's victory like Arsenal is like a political party that's won an election. And, you know, I can do the same about Morocco and Egypt, etc. The point is we're similar, but we're not the same. Yeah. Should we, practically, should our mindset be focused on we are African as a collective, or we are, say, South African, but part of Africa?
What is deeply disturbing about trying to answer that question is that in South Africa, we are not only Africans. We have white people who are here. We have Asians, we have Chinese. Not all of them are here illegally. Not all of them are here legally. But when we talk about these issues, African continent, it's like we're only talking about people who look like us here. And that's so ingrained. We need to change that perspective so that I'll just park that point there. The second point I want to mention is that the problems that we're experiencing in South Africa, they are not problems that the middle class are experiencing, right? I live in Midrand. I'm not having those problems. I teach at the University of the Free State. Where I'm staying in a suburb. There are not those problems. We really need to talk about this issue in a practical sense, that there are people who don't know how they're going to get their supper. They don't know where they're going to sleep. We need to address those issues. I don't think when you talk about the importance of Africa, the continent is so important. I mean, I have done research.
Well, I'll tell you what, pause on that, because I want to bring up on that. When we have personal issues, you know, your middle class problem is your Wi-Fi is, you lost connectivity. I get that. Others have a different issue. But when we have these problems, we address it as Africans or South Africans. I'm talking of personalize it. But hold that thought. I'll come back to you on this. This is the National Pulse.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Ethiopia, East Africa. The Horn of Africa's historic giant, a land of ancient kingdoms, highlands and deep cultural legacy, bordered by Eritrea, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya, South Sudan and Sudan, home to Addis Ababa, the diplomatic capital of Africa, and one of the only African nations never formally colonized. Over 80 ethnic groups shape the nation. Amharic is the official working language, alongside many others spoken across the country. A civilization with roots stretching back thousands of years. Ethiopia's modern independence was defended in 1896 at the Battle of Adwa, a symbol of African resistance across the continent. Agriculture drives much of the economy. Coffee, industry and infrastructure fuel rapid growth. But challenges remain. Conflict, drought, inflation and humanitarian pressures. Still, Ethiopia rises with determination, a nation shaped by endurance and identity. Ethiopia carries history and shapes the future. In every mountain, in every anthem, in every generation, there is legacy. Ethiopia, ancient, proud, enduring.
Africa Month on SAfm. Conversations, context, connection. Celebrating African thought, African resilience, and African possibility. This is SAfM. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
So, I mean, here's the point, isn't it? Baking your child's birthday cake saves money, you know that, right? But you could really save by switching to Outsurance Essential Car Insurance. Made for older cars, 68-year-old John, as an example, pays only 391 rands a month for his 2014 Chevrolet Sonic. Gets claims paid in cash and chooses his own panel beater. Get OutSurance Essential Car Insurance today for unfinanced cars older than 5 years and valued at less than 130,000 rands. SMS CAR to 43185. That's CAR 43185. OutSurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's and information online.
This Africa Day, SAfm goes continental.
It certainly does. We have we're going to have many guests, in fact, over the next 3 hours as we get to the end of the show at 6 o'clock. But for now, you've heard different voices. I'll get back then to just get Dr. Neo Ramoapi just to answer that, what you said. So what I'm trying to get at, I heard your middle class problem. Yes. My question was, should we think as Africans first or South Africans first? And then you made the point about the myriad of problems we have, say, in this country, right? But in addressing the problems of this country, or any country on the African continent, and I'm saying Nigeria, Ghana, Morocco, wherever, should the people of that country, when they address the problems, do they address it as Nigerians, or do they address it as Africans, or they literally address it in their local community? Because that's as far as the eye can see, which is their community. And they're not interested in who's running the country. It's like, who can solve my lights problem if I don't?
I think we must address this problem first as Africans, because South African is actually a colonial name, right? We are Africans and we have fought continentally to be liberated. So why should we now separate ourselves and say we are South Africans? To be Azanian or Mzansi people, it's important, but the idea of Pan-Africanism that we are Africans should come first to address these issues, because divide and rule is going to continue if we do that. But at the same time, we know there's Zimbabwe, we know there's Mozambique, we know there is us here, Azania or whatever we call ourselves. How do we address the issues that we have here?
Okay. I get your point. As you're talking, Molyam, Vunamina, you sort of nodding and you're reflecting. Give me your thoughts on that, because I'm asking you practically, what should our mindset be? South African, African, Nigerian, Moroccan, what?
Well, it's a bit complicated to answer, honestly. But I think Dr. Neo's right. You look at it as African first, because the problems that we're facing, the challenges that we're dealing with, everything that we're trying to tackle, we have to look at it from an African perspective first. When we start trying to bring in South African and Zimbabwean, it's creating more division than anything, right? And some of the issues that we are facing, looking at the economy, looking at the job market, looking at natural disasters and how they affect food security, that's an African problem. So I think it's critical for us to tackle African problems first, and then from there we can start maybe sorting out individual countries. But I also recognize how difficult that is. Because it's almost impossible. But when we now stop looking at the divide and conquer, because a lot of the issues that we do face from the divide and conquer, it's always been you should work against each other. And as brothers and sisters, we've been separated because of divide and rule. But there may be certain situations where someone in the next country has a solution for me. Someone in West Africa has a solution that will work in my climate.
You can use that. Let me move on, just because of time. I want to bring in Mankitla Felix on that part there. I mean, I hear that. My point from a practical point of view, nobody's saying give up your African heritage and identity. I mean, in football terms, when an African country does well, I just get thrilled, okay? But then, conversely, if Sundowns plays against the team from Morocco, I want Sundowns to win, because of my South Africanness. My point is, isn't that the most normal thing in the world? That, in fact, different countries have different heritage, and you're saying, support your heritage, but at the same time, learn to collaborate and co-create. Isn't that the real issue?
I think for me, there's numerous things, and I'll just go back to what Meh has said here, is that it's a difficult one, because at the end of the day, I think one cannot sit here and be hypocritical to say, no, I want African first, but yet in my kitchen I have no bread, I have nothing, and I'm thinking about someone else. That's the reality, right? But the truth of the matter is working together is always important. I love what you said about, I'll give you an example actually about me. Every single time I travel, when we met, I said, Zambia, my home. Because you said you're from, I love Zambia. And the beautiful thing is part and parcel of who I am is because of some of the things I've learned there. And guess what? I bring that knowledge back, and then I educate my friends about the things I've learned, right? I show them how certain strategies work if they're trying to expand their businesses into Africa, the rest of the continent. But we have to learn from each other. And I think that unity is what's important, not individual.
Okay. Let's move on. So if we have to learn from each other, just from where you then sit, how then do we learn from each other?
We converse. We have frank conversations. We don't just speak about it from a theoretical perspective. And I think we were talking about it with Molia. We apply it practically. What works, what doesn't work, how do we decipher? In essence, as Africans, maybe I'm South African, she's Zambian, he's Nigerian. Okay. We have two young leaders that are here with me today. One is Nigerian, one is South African. What are we learning from each other? How do we apply culturally different perspectives into whether it be personal life or work?
So if I can push you on to news time very quickly. So the conversation we're having right now is a very frank conversation. The problem is the critics will say, you see, that's the problem. It's a whole lot of people who are thought leaders in their space. They have that. How do we translate this onto the streets of many of the towns and tribes and big cities that make up the African continent? How do they get to hear this?
We go to them. This is what we need to start doing.
Using what? TikTok? What? I mean, what's the method?
There is a beautiful, there's social media where you can reach everyone. But in essence, when we do meet like this, we come from different communities. We have conversations with friends and family. Like she was saying, we go into our communities where there are sittings in Bizo. We speak to one another. Let us meet each other where we are. There's a lot of issues that are there, but come on, let's just speak, let's reflect, and let's understand each other. The other issue is that we don't actually fundamentally understand why some or most Africans who are in the country cannot go back home. Let us have frank, not just conversations, but reflections in the community. Why are you here? What brought you here? What is the issue? Can you go back home? If you can't, why can't you?
Absolutely. Let me pause on that. Thank you for that. I mean, you certainly have picked the consciousness, and and that's a good thing for all four of you, in fact. So there we are. The African question on African Day is an important agenda-setting question to ask. Let's get the news now. It's 4 o'clock.
Thank you, Ashraf. On the top stories, over 140 people arrested following looting in Bloemfontein, and Mohotsi's case has been suspended to Thursday. For SAFM News, I am Ondelambana, and a very good afternoon. More than 140 people have been arrested following incidents of looting, public violence and damage to property linked to the shutdown in Bloemfontein and surrounding areas. Free State Police spokesperson Thabo Covane says the crowd stormed a grocery store in Bloemspruit in Phase 6 before police intervened. He says incidents were reported in Maditlabela, Buchabela and Bergman Square, where suspects were arrested for looting and possession of suspected stolen goods. Covane says Free State Police Commissioner Thabang Lesia says more officers have been deployed to restore calm. Violence and looting in parts of the Mangaung Metropolitan Municipality have been strongly condemned by the Black Business Chamber of the Free State. While the chamber acknowledges concerns around unfair competition, non-compliance and economic exclusion, it rejects all forms of violence and lawlessness. Lebohango Mutoleng reports.
Black Business Chamber of the Free State warns that destruction of businesses regardless of ownership undermines jobs, investor confidence and already fragile township economies. The chamber is calling for the immediate restoration of law and order, protection of businesses and workers, stricter enforcement of compliance, and structured engagements between government, businesses, and communities. BBCFS urges that grievances be addressed through dialogue and lawful action, not destruction.
The case against alleged political fixer Brown Mokhotsi has once been postponed to this Thursday for verification of address. Mokhotsi appeared before the Johannesburg Magistrates Court on Monday for a formal bail application. He faces charges of unlawful possession of a firearm and ammunition, discharging a firearm in a built-up area, defeating the ends of justice, and perjury for allegedly staging a hit on his life in November last year. The latest postponement follows the state indicating that Mokhotsi's address differed from what he provided the court. Magistrate Annelies Klapi presided over the matter.
At this stage, I will grant the postponement for the purpose of the address to be verified. I think this calls for the state as well as the applicant is in this matter because of the address which the state had previously differed from what we have provided to the court. So I think there is a need. So, and I've also noted that this application is agent, and therefore I grant a short postponement to Thursday.
The chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Social Development, Bridget Masango, says the next step that Parliament will take against former Minister of Social Development, Sisisi Dolashe, will be informed by the outcome of investigations that are currently underway. Dolashe was fired by President Cyril Ramaphosa from the cabinet recently after facing various allegations. Masango says the committee will receive an update on a number of investigations, including those facing Dolashe tomorrow.
The leaving of the minister does not mean that, because obviously we have to oversight and arrive at a place where if there were taxpayers' monies that disappeared as a result of whatever could have happened, that the processes that need to be followed to recoup those monies ensued. But that can only happen as a result of a investigation that gets presented to us, and then we can take whatever steps that need to be taken internally in Parliament.
Iran's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baghei says although progress has been made on several issues under discussion in a possible memorandum of understanding with the United States, Tehran is not close to signing an agreement. This comes after U.S. President Donald Trump took to social media yesterday saying that while an agreement with Iran to end the war had largely been negotiated, the blockade on Iran would remain in place until a full agreement is concluded. Baghei added that Iran is not currently discussing nuclear issues or control of the Strait of Hormuz, and said shifting positions among U.S. officials are complicating any potential agreement.
It is true that we have reached a conclusion regarding a large part of the topics under discussion, but to say that this means the signing of an agreement is imminent, no one can make such a claim, because policy-making and decision-making in America have become caught in a kind of institutionalized instability. The focus of the negotiation is on ending the war, and at this stage, we are not talking about the details of the nuclear issue. In this agreement, we are not discussing details regarding how the Strait of Hormuz is managed. That's the topic of discussion for the coastal states of the Strait.
Recapping the top story, more than 140 people have been arrested following incidents of looting, public violence and damage to property linked to the shutdown in Bloemfontein and surrounding areas. I'm Mundulambana for SAfm News Headlines at 4:30.
In sports this hour, SAFA expels 4 suspended members for taking matters to court, and Jacobs to miss Durban and Gqeberha Spa women's 10-kilometer races. More details at 4:30.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
So going on Joburg's N3 South today, it's the usual breakdown at Van Buren. So coming through from Edenvale via Gilooly's into Bedfordview, that's all heavily backed up. And then behind that, the M12 and R24 routes are under some pressure. There's a crash as you drive in from Ekurhuleni before Gilooly's near Boeing Road Bridge. And then some problems just getting off that M12 and into that N3 traffic going slowly towards Van Buren. So a lot of pressure around Gilooly's. And there's also, at the same time, a breakdown on the N3 North, ramp to the N12 East at the interchange. You're coming from Van Buren Road up into traffic, Galilee, so that's all pretty heavily packed as well. Grayston Drive out of Sandton towards Linden is heavy. A lot of traffic lights out all over Four Ways. Main and Lone Hill is one of the big ones. Also, Four Ways Boulevard, Cedar Road, lights down there as well. Not a bad run through Midrand at this stage, which is good news if you're just about to get out of Joburg on your way home to Midrand or through to Pretoria. Crash on Durban's N2 rams to the N3 north. The N3 rams to the N2 north. So coming in from Pavilion Mall or heading out from Felix Flamini, the N3 is really quite heavy as you line up towards those rams to put you onto the N2 north. That collision scene just as you sort of ramp onto the highway there, and that's what's causing a delay. Southbound, not too bad. There was a breakdown into Spaghetti Junction, but that scene is being cleared. And Cape Town today, N1 Service Road, out of town towards the N7, passing Canal Walk, quite busy. The M5 queues up from Kuberg Road, Brooklyn, all the way down to Racecourse Road, and the M3 currently sitting in traffic pressure there from Hospital Bend to Rhodes Drive. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Egypt, Northeast Africa. Africa Month, one continent, many legacies. This Africa Month, we stand with Egypt.
One of the world's oldest civilizations, a land of pyramids, of pharaohs, of power. The Nile River has been the lifeline of a nation for thousands of years. A gateway between Africa and the world. A country where history lives and breathes.
Egypt gained independence in 1922 from foreign control to national sovereignty. Through revolutions, through change, through time, Egypt has endured. From Cairo's energy to ancient stones, past and present stand side by side. A leader in culture, a force in the region.
Egypt does not fade, it endures. In every monument, in every story, in every heartbeat, there is legacy. Egypt is ancient, powerful, eternal.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. Who says talking never solves anything? SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. From Cairo to Cape Town, Lagos to Nairobi, Africa lives here on SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Africa Day Roundtable. The reasons are pretty obvious today, May 25. The reasons are pretty obvious. May 25 is Africa Day. Let me remind you, because of this day, today's show, the National Pulse, is dedicated to the SAFM's, to Africa Day. So we have this SAFM Roundtable, right? So we'll take calls as well just now. You've heard four. We've had four panelists. We're going to have more different perspectives all throughout up to 6 o'clock as well. So looking forward to engaging with you as well. I think we'll be joined shortly by Sharmi Suranarayan coming up just now, as well as many others too, right? But I want to go back, in fact, shift slightly to where we are, and probably touch on one of the most emotive issues that we are experiencing in South Africa, but across the continent, which is a sense of the movement of people. In fact, I want to start with you on this one here. Just the movement of people. What is your take on we this one continent with a myriad of problems, like any other continent, right? But what we have is what we have in common is we are on one continent. So what are your thoughts about the humanity of the different people on the continent and the free movement or lack thereof of all the people? And I really want to broaden this outside of South Africa.
Yes.
So that we can learn a lot more. It is not about South Africa.
Yes.
It's about the free movement across the continent. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts is that we have amazing opportunities to travel, experience other beautiful countries on the continent, learn from each other, and it is so that we can be able to learn broaden our perspective. But also looking at freedom of movement being limited, it's a reality. The whole issues of borders, the limitations of, movement in terms of what that means, the issues of documentation, being documented, undocumented, what does that mean, what does that reflect? And in terms of why is that important, how that came into positioning, that documentation becomes a critical issue that we need to produce in order to, going back to an issue that you were highlighting, are you South African, you're African, what does that mean, what does that look like, why is that important? And so these issues then speaks to, are we growing as a people, in a sense that in terms of the charters that have been implemented or intended to be implemented, so there is freedom of trade, freedom of movement, from what the panelists have been saying, that it's so important to collaborate, to partner, and, move from ourselves. We are so resourced, rich in that even the world wants to come into, the continent and take.
But therefore, the key point is, should we have a borderless Africa where economically you can connect with any other country on the African continent? You could well have one currency. You wouldn't need a passport to travel across the African continent, and therefore you wouldn't be identified as you're Ghanaian or you're a Burkinabe. You wouldn't be that. You'd just all be called African. Should we even enter that conversation or not?
Historically, our leaders have been in conversation with the intent to do that. But the challenges and the realities, because of our differences, our different perspectives, it has been a very mammoth of a task to initiate or implement. So the theory has been there, but the practicality has been a challenge, because we have, obviously, who will lead us? Why that particular person will lead us? The power dynamics has been a very big issue. And we see, even with the longevity of not wanting to leave office, why you would then have politically wanting to go into politics way beyond 90. The issues of how do we incorporate young people with a growing population of young people on the continent into the avenues of every spheres of the economy. We have young people that are wanting to participate, have their voices heard, they don't have the opportunities. And it is a growing concern to say, are we allowing the traction of, impartation to happen naturally? Or are we just hoping for the best?
But then haven't you answered your own question in the sense that was always the wish list, but historically it's been impractical? We'd love to, but it just can't be done.
It could be done if if we were reasonable enough to be able to meet each other where we are. Yeah. But we have other issues from a Pan-African perspective where there is the Francophone and the Anglophone issues. There's a lot of dynamics, tribalism, and the dynamics of women being in leadership being an issue, and then how do we navigate that? And would men be willing? I know there are African women that have been presidents before, but would they be liberated enough to want that and be led by a woman?
Well, as you said, if we can be reasonable enough. That is the voice of Intobi Zodwa Msani, right? Let me just get another perspective on this. Molya Vundamina, right? Who, just to remind you, is the project officer and doctoral candidate in public law at the Center for Human Rights at the University of Pretoria. You want to answer, that thought? I mean, I think it was Muammar Gaddafi who said first, drop the currency, one currency. Now, there's a lot of debate about why he's not alive anymore. And I mean, others, Malema, then came up with something similar. But, it's been spoken about. But is there a case for us to think of us with complete free travel on the African continent, but not just travel as in holiday, travel as in, that's my home. Cairo is my home. Accra is my home. Can we say that?
That's been the goal since the 1960s. So just to echo what Ntombi said, right? That has been the goal, but there were fractions when it came to that, because there were issues of political integration as well. Someone becoming president and other leaders suspecting Nkrumah of wanting to become the leader of Africa, But it is possible, but it's not something that we hope will happen at one go. just to take it back to the trade aspect, right now we keep on talking about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but we're not talking about free movement. So the question is, how do we have continental trade without having free movement? How do we trade in goods without people? It can't happen. So it's a phased approach. The first phase would be the right to enter a country, which most countries do allow. Looking at the SADC area, looking at the East African community and West Africa as well, they do have that phase where they've achieved that phase successfully. You're allowed to enter a country for up to 3 months. And then the second phase would be the right to work in the country. And then the third phase would be the right of establishment.
But look at the example, because as we talk, some may say, but that's so impractical, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at the European Union. In reality, it is true. Once you land in a country, and I was in Germany, a few months back. Once you're in Germany, to go by train to France, you don't need a passport. Mm-hmm. And, you can crisscross all those countries. So, we don't have that, do we?
In certain areas we do. In certain economic zones we do have that. So in the SADC area, SADC countries are allowed to enter South Africa with just your passport. You don't need a visa.
No, we're saying no passport.
No passport, not yet.
In many European countries, no passport. Once you land, you're in that whole big zone.
No, we don't have that yet. Okay. So I think we need to establish on a continental level, we need to allow people to travel visa-free. Okay. That, I think, is the first stage.
At the very least, yeah.
At the very least. Yeah. But in theory, we sort of do have free movement because people have unilateral agreements or multilateral agreements where several countries agree and say citizens of these countries can come in visa-free. So we do have that, but now the challenge is just the whole continent agreeing.
You still have to knock on the door. You can't just open the door and say it's my house.
Yes.
I'm sure, Nayo, you've got lots to say. We'll come back to you on that in a moment, right? This is the National Pulse. This is Africa Day, and therefore this SAfm Africa Roundtable. I hope you're enjoying it. The purpose really is to stimulate your mind and stimulate your consciousness to take action and to be a galvanizer, to live in the African continent, the Africa that you want to be in. Anyway, more coming up next.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
When Avukile was diagnosed with blood cancer, his only hope was a stem cell transplant from a matching donor. Thankfully, a perfect match was found, and Avukile received the transplant that saved his life. But thousands of patients in South Africa are still waiting to find their match. Together, we can give more patients like Avukile a second chance at life. Visit dkmsafrica.org.
This is an SABC-supported initiative.
Water bottle, check. Sunscreen, check. Binoculars, around my neck.
Ha! Is that Tembi? The same couch potato who shouts when we interrupt his soapies with ta! Ta!
But look at her now, a professional bird watcher.
Oh, I'm shook. She's finally out here.
I love the peaceful sounds of nature. Live life outside with Cape Union Mart.
Quantum on SAfm.
Step into the future with Quantum. The radio show that goes beyond the headlines to explore how you can evolve, adapt, and thrive in times of rapid change. We will explore cutting-edge thinking coupled with practical life design applications. I'm Angela Ludek, and I invite you to join this community where real progress begins with human capital development. Quantum, Monday to Friday, 3 to 5 a.m. on SAfm.
In case you missed it,
This actually seems to be an absurd conversation. Hundreds of millions have been spent on water tankers when what we actually need is proper water infrastructure.
If you have competent people and engineers and scientists that are employed by municipalities to identify the root cause and then implement a structured plan, long-term plan to address this. But I don't see that. I haven't heard any plans from the municipalities as to how they're going to reduce the water losses, what is the root cause. So it seems like we're just running around in circles, but we're not moving in any direction.
Director at AHL Water and water expert Aisha Lahar.
That was the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph. As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Ghana, West Africa. The first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence in 1957. A nation that lit the path for liberation across the continent. Rich in gold, cocoa and culture. A land where history and progress walk together. Ghana is home to over 80 languages, including Akan, Yu, Ga, Dagbani. A nation where diversity is not divided. It is unified through shared identity and pride. From Accra's coastline to the Ashanti's region cultural heartland, heritage lives in everyday life. Kente cloth carries meaning in every thread. Festivals bring communities together in color and rhythm. And storytelling remains central to identity. A stable democracy in West Africa, a nation known for unity, hospitality, and cultural pride. Ghana leads with legacy and lifts in every harvest, in every heartbeat, in every voice. There is pride. Ghana is historic, united, and strong.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Right, this message is brought to you by the National Lottery, right? In Mzansi, a new reason to play has landed. Sizekaya is shaking things up with the cascading jackpots. Every last draw of the month, Powerball Extra and Lotto 5 Max will now have guaranteed winners. More winners means more celebrations across Mzansi. A new chapter begins with the Sizekaya. Players must be 18 years or older, play responsibly. The National Lottery is operated by Sizekaya from the 1st of June, 2026, next week.
Governance, humanity, youth, identity. The SAFM Africa Roundtable, only on SAFM.
Right, we'll have different guests coming in as well just now, but we'll stay with the guests we have up to at least 4:30, maybe slightly beyond that. And as part of this Africa Roundtable, we moved from, the initial conversations about how do we galvanize around Africa Day for the benefit of the African continent. Now it's a case about the movement of people, just the free movement of everything African on the African continent. So, Dr. Neo Ramwape, your thoughts? I mean, you've heard the comments we've had earlier from Molia, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I mean, I'm suggesting, if I ask you, should there be free movement, I have no doubt you're going to say yes. I have no doubt. What I want to know is the practical.
I mean, we are talking about migration, right? It is practical. Maybe contemporary, we have seen Trevor Noah, how he has been successful, right? There were also issues about why him, why the South African. People are moving everywhere. It's called migration, but when it's happening here, it's given another name. If South Africa was economically stable, we will not have these problems, because people who are coming in, who are working here, will not have problems with them. But the challenges is the bread and butter and peanut butter. I love peanut butter. Those are the issues. If you don't have them really, if other people don't have them, then we have these problems. You say people are taking jobs from you. When you think about it practically, it doesn't make sense, right? Because during apartheid, we all have in our township, I'm from Haramkua, we have shops, we have people who are selling butcheries, everything. Why is this happening now? We need to really talk the language that all of us can understand. And it seems as if we are speaking different languages.
Well, you spoke about peanut butter. I'm allergic to peanut butter, just so that you know, right? The point I made earlier, that, and you're saying if we had no economic issues in South Africa, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But isn't that exactly the point? Which is what we had said earlier on with Molia, that you have a home. First of all, should someone knock on the door, which is a visa, or should they just open the door? That's one question. But the second is, the home, say, typically caters for 4 people to stay. Now you get an uncle and an aunt who visits from another place, and you get to 6, and you make a plan. But now you get another 2. Can you really make a plan? Now you're up to 8. Now they're laying on the floor in the lounge. Now another 2 comes. Now you have 10. Suddenly you have a resource problem. So all the great family Ubuntu ideals you have now collapse because you can't cope. Isn't that the reality that we face?
Yeah, it is. It is the realities that we are facing, and this is what is happening now. But there are other countries. Namibia have removed the visa issue, right? They are no longer, you can just go. But other countries are saying, we need this money, this resource. Whoever is coming in must pay something. But the idea that the European Union have been able to do it, ourselves as Africans, we need to get to that stage so that we can trade easily with each other.
Well, I mean, you see, maybe that's the naivety. People think, or governments think, the income from the visa is most important, whereas the cost of that visa limits trade to that country, where the big money is the trade. I mean, that's it. Where do you fit in? I mean, you talk about economic growth all the time. Tell me about that. Because, I mean, there's 2 parts of migration. There's economic trade, and there's not migration as a tourist, but migration where people choose to move to places all the time.
So from my end, it's actually quite funny because people always ask me, okay, Mankitla, you guys in South Africa, you have so many resources. Why do you go outside South African borders to actually source out business? And the thing is, it's not just about that. There are also no opportunities. There are no opportunities for me here. But let me tell you something. You go to the next country. Remember, again, it's about relationship building. It's about how your decorum when you go into someone else's country, the respect that you have for someone else's country, for them to welcome you in their country. You form that relationship. I'm very big on the relationship part of it when Neo says migration, but it's about the relationship building as you move into other African countries, because that's when you accept it. That's when people...
Because migration sounds like you're taking away resources.
Yes.
And that's where you're getting this pushback, isn't it?
But it's an exchange. Remember, you can call it an Afro exchange. Because now I am also taking what I have in my own intellectual property, and then I'm going to teach you guys what I have. And then it's an exchange. So I'm not taking anything. You're not taking anything from me, but we're exchanging ideas. That's also part of where now we increase employment as well. I'm adding value in your country, but yet I'm a foreigner. And I'm going to go back again to what Dr. now said. But then...
Very, very quickly, we want to news time. Go ahead, yeah.
And then in South Africa, you have someone from Zambia, Zimbabwe that comes here, and then we're saying you're taking our jobs. Little things, just to wrap it up a little bit. You've lived at that corner in Garangua, Dr. No, your entire life. I come from Ethiopia. I see that corner and I see the possibility that corner will do, right? I have my little table. I start selling apples. I make money from it. Then you're going to attack me because I'm in your country and I saw an opportunity that you've had your entire life.
And you never saw it.
And you never saw it. So what does that say about us?
Think about that. And if you saw the opportunity and if they use you and employ you and appoint you manager, maybe you'll be far richer than you ever were. I mean, that's the part of conversations we need to be having. More to come here on Africa Day and therefore the SAfm Africa Day Roundtable. But right now, news headlines just go on 4:30.
On the news headlines, President Cyril Ramaphosa says Africa has the expertise, institutions and leadership to mount a strong response to the Ebola outbreak,
More than 140 people have been arrested following incidents of looting, public violence and damage to property linked to the shutdown in Bloemfontein and surrounding areas. And the case involving SAFA President Denny Jordan and his 3 co-accused has been postponed to the 27th of August by the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court in Ekurhuleni. A full update follows at the top of the hour with Greg Gous.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good afternoon, Joburg N3 remains jam-packed on the run through to Bedford. An earlier breakdown around Van Buren Road. It's been cleared, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's another stuck in that mix there somewhere. It's very slow, coming from London Road at Alex all the way down through Van Buren down to Heldnace. Behind that, the N12 and R24, it's under pressure coming from Ekurhuleni into Galulis as well. The Mike 1 slow from Melrose to Houghton and then Parktown all the way through to Boysons. The N1 going north, sitting from Beclume up towards the New Road exit today. Durban, a crash on the N2 northbound before Gateway. That traffic very heavy already from Kwamashu. There's also a crash coming off the N3 onto the N2 north at Spaghetti Junction. So outbound, it's heavy from the from Felix Clemini sort of area all the way through to Spaghetti Junction, and inbound you're backing up from about Pavilion Mall on the N3 to get into Spaghetti Junction and turn into that crashing as you pick up the N2 northbound carriageway. Cape Town today, a little bit of traffic on that N1 service road passing Canal Walk. The M3 is quite heavy from Hospital Bend down to Rhodes Drive, and the M5 highway probably the busiest one. That is jamming up from the Kuiberg Road, Brooklyn, all the way through to Racecourse Road down in the Kenilworth area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sports with Tuming Kapele.
Well, starting things off with football this hour, the road to this year's South African Football Association elections took an interesting turn yesterday as the Ordinary Congress moved to expel the 4 National Executive Committee members who were suspended. SAFA held constitutional and ordinary congresses at the Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg this past weekend, with the suspension of Gladwin White, Monde Muntsiwa, Orapeleng Setlhare and Emma Hendricks, one of the contentious points. And here's SAFA Vice President Linda Zwane just explaining this decision, which was voted for by the delegates.
These guys were, or the said members, were suspended by the NEC pending the DC. But whilst the process was leading to that, they decided to go to a court which is against the SAFA statutes and the FIFA statutes, of course. So I think that is the consequence of the court. The first decision was to suspend to DC, but this decision to take the matter to court has resulted to this. So that is how you treat them, because we are not, whether they were suspended and what are the merits of their suspension was not discussed here, because that belonged to another forum. But the matter that was before Congress was them taking the matters to court.
Meanwhile, former Mamelodi Sundowns defender and CAF Champions League winner in 2016, Wayne Renser, says that the club's continental victory last night was long overdue. Masandawana were crowned African champions last night following a 1-1 draw against AS4. However, they finished the tie with a 2-1 aggregate score, which was enough to lift the coveted trophy.
It's exciting moments for the club and also everybody's Sundown supporters and everybody involved. I think it's long overdue. You know, as you can see, the history of the club, the way they've just been growing since 2016. You know, bringing in the players. You know, trying to conquer Africa, and to finally see it pay off. You know, it's a good thing and a good feeling, because I put a lot of things behind the scenes, and I can say, like, you see how persistent a team is. You know, they get knocked out by the semi-final, then they go to the final again, they get knocked out, but they keep going, they keep signing players, they push because they really want it.
In athletics, South African middle distance runner Kayla Jacobs has confirmed that she will miss the upcoming Spa Women's 10-kilometer challenge races in Durban on the 28th of June and Gqeberha on the 27th of September. Jacobs, who recently returned to road running after giving birth a few months ago, impressed with a third-place finish in 30 minutes 16 seconds during the Cape Town leg in March. And just speaking at the Tshwane race, which is set to take place on the 1st of August, Jacobs said that she will compete in the Gauteng races but will miss Durban and Gqeberha events because of commitments in Europe, where she's set to compete in several track meetings. In rugby, South African rugby legend Nas Botha has embarked on a new chapter in the United States, appointed director of rugby at the Kansas City Blues. The former Springbok fly half, capped 28 times between 1980 and 1992, is hailed as one of South Africa's most respected figures in the game. The Blues says that Botha will drive rugby development in the American Midwest while mentoring players with national team potential. Anything's off with cricket. Proteas woman coach Mandla Mashimbi says that his mind is already at the T20 World Cup final, which will be played at Lord's in London on the 5th of July. Mashimbi was speaking ahead of the team's departure for England, which will happen in 2 batches, today and tomorrow. They'll be looking to finally win the tournament after making the final in the previous 2 editions, losing to Australia and New Zealand respectively. And Mashimbi expressed confidence that they are part of the favourites to lift the trophy and just have to figure out how to get over that final hurdle. More on other sports in the next hour.
Outsurance can't improve your couch coaching skills, but they could improve the car insurance premium you currently pay. SMS out to 30754. Get a quote today, and if Outsurance can't save you money on your car insurance premium, ask for 500 Rand cash. Make that 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free and with the same insurer for 3 years. Get a quote and get savings or cash. Either way, you win. SMS out to 30754. When it comes to car insurance, you couldn't be in better hands. Outsurance was voted News 24 Short-Term Insurer of the Year for 4 years in a row. Beal to Reader's Choice Best Insurer 4 years in a row, and City Press Reader's Choice Best Insurer Award 3 years in a row. Clearly, they all feel they're getting something out. SMS right now to see if you can switch and save. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Outsurance, licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, it's the Africa Day Roundtable conversation that we've been having, and we'll stay with that theme up to 6 o'clock for the entire show of the National Pulse, this being Africa Day, right? Having said all of that, let's get to the markets now with Marco and Masilela. Marco, you've got news about Pick and Pay. It's not so good, right? Marco, do I have it there? Marco, you live on the National Pulse?
Thank you, Ashraf, and to the listeners.
Thank you. Right, you've got Pick and Pay's not so good results.
Yeah, the guys delayed a key turnaround target by a year as they only expect to break even on trading profit in 2029, which is a year later than the initial target. They want to restore their reputation in bakery and butchery to back to their roots. Remember, they used to be known as the fresh food people, and the group turnover up 3.4%, driven by Boxer's 12.3% growth, as Pick and Pay supermarkets declined by 1.6%, but their losses recovered at least by 14.6%, and Ashraf, markets have become conditioned to be patient on a tangible peace deal breakthrough, and the base case of a deal remains firm, with the weekend news providing further conviction, even if the timing remains unclear. Most markets are on a bank holiday, that is the likes of the US, UK, Hong Kong, so trading volumes are very thin, and any hopes of a peace deal is positive for global stocks and negative for the likes of the US dollar, which was seen as a preferred safe haven asset when the Middle East conflict was was escalating, and also inflation fears are now less, helping to lift bonds, and there's an improvement in risk sentiment. Locally, we are expecting to get our interest rate decision on Thursday, and the market continue to be split, as we've seen that our inflation jumped to 4%, but as we're talking now, oil prices are busy going down, and U.S.-Iran peace prospects weakened the dollar, making the yellow metal affordable for holders of other currencies, and we see gold is up 1.3% at 4,569, platinum up 2.5%, and the very same peace prospects led oil prices to trade at two-week low, even though the two parties remain at odds over key issues, and Brent crude is down 8% at $95 a barrel. Global stocks are cheering the nearing of a peace deal that will lead to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. The GSE up 2.5% with resources doing most of the heavy lifting, and the rand firmed 1% against the dollar, 16.30, 21.99 against the pound, and 18.95 against the euro.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that, Marco. We'll connect tomorrow. We have an hour of the SAfm market update coming up from 6 to 7 this evening.
What does being African mean to you? Join the conversation this Africa Day on SAfm. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
I think that's an important question. What does being African mean to you? And honestly, I think if I asked 1,000 people, they may say it very differently with 1,000 different ways. But you can go ahead and give it a try. What does being African mean to you? And when we get a chance, we'll play your WhatsApp comments as well. This being a special broadcast of the National Pulse, tying in with Africa Day, so the SAfm Africa Day Roundtable. Right, we've had 4 guests with me and as part of the panel conversation so far. We'll be joined by others. Some of them are not physically, some of them are here virtually. In fact, one of them is Sharmi Surya Narayan, who's a social commentator, media voice, public engagement specialist as well. Sharmi, thanks for joining us here on the National Pulse.
Great to be on. Thanks, Ashraf. How are you?
Very good indeed. Of course, you've been listening into the conversation. Maybe as a starting point, let me leave it with you open-ended. Based upon what you've heard, is there anything you'd like to get off your chest?
Yeah, absolutely, Ashraf. For me, I think, so I come in from 2 perspectives. One, as a Pan-African, I live in Nairobi but work across Africa, specifically for and with young people. Personally, I've had the privilege of living and working in at least 3 African countries, in Nigeria, in South Africa, and now in Kenya. And I just want to make a couple of observations. One, I think we need to look at what Africa Day means politically as well as economically, and I think it's slightly different if you examine both lenses. When Africa, when sort of the AU was conceived, it was a political movement, and it was a sort of a post-liberation era movement to galvanize a continent. Some of that is true today, although I would argue that our political mandates really need to be re-examined, particularly because Africa is the youngest continent in the world, and yet we are ruled politically by, unfortunately, a leadership from another century. So that's where I think, for me, that's a real, issue to look at in terms of political representation. And the second reality is the economic one, which I think some of your guests have been speaking about, particularly when it comes to not enough opportunities, and how do you turn spaces that don't have enough opportunities then become, unfortunately, populist because as a result of that. And I think that's the economic reality. We as Africa need to be governed by, a real imagination for both our current reality, but the future. The future is African. We are the youngest continent in the world. We are going to be the workforce of the future. And this should galvanize us both politically and economically. So I think those points, are really important for me because I work in the space of youth employment. And I see and I work with young people every single day. And I'm really impressed with both the energy and resilience that Africa and African youth in particular have. And I think, unfortunately, our failings are systemic and structural, and they don't paint both a political or an economic future for the continent that is truly imaginative.
Okay,
we're kind of lingering in sort of past ideas of what this continent should be about.
Lots to come out of that. I'm looking at almost what sounds like a paradoxical statement about the future is African, and then you say, but our leadership is stuck in the previous century. So maybe give me an example of that statement. When you say leadership is stuck in the previous century, practically, I mean, what are the receipts? What do you mean?
Quite literally, right? We have some of the oldest heads of state. I think the president of Cameroon is 92 years old, and so are many other heads of state, and yet the average age of the African continent is 19. So politically, this reality doesn't compute. And we've also got systems and institutions that are designed by that, older century. So of course we're having adjustment issues, to put it mildly. The protests, for example, that took place here in Kenya, where I live 2 and something years ago, were a huge sort of demonstration of that. And it's not just that people are entitled and frustrated. They are demanding a new vision for the African continent. That's not just a liberation era imagination of what this continent could be like, but something that can be governed by people who actually represent the interests of current Africans, which are predominantly young people, and design a future that can serve all of us.
And those leaders who are from the previous century, I mean, their hands are firmly grasped onto the levers of power. They're not going away in a hurry, are they? What do we do?
Yeah, I mean, this is true. No one likes to release power. I think you need to. I have a new theory about how this works. I think it's not a question of passing the baton in this linear fashion anymore. People are living longer. Our lives are, designed differently. We need to think of it as intergenerational spaces, whether it's politically, economically, across institutions. We need to have workspaces and political institutions, really, that are designed to accommodate young voices. I used to work with African Leadership Academy, and we, had young people take in, consideration the political careers. So we have, for example, one of the youngest MPs in Kenya here today, who's now serving young people his age, and he's close to the Gen Zs. Similarly, in many other countries, Liberia as well. So we need people to come into office, be in public service, be in politics. But I can see that, our older generations are very reluctant to sort of give up power. So we need to do it in a way that's about intergenerational dialogue. And I do think young people are the solution, and they come in with so many ideas. And if we accommodate them and use that as a driving force, it allows us to imagine a different Africa politically as well as economically.
So, I mean, this may sound provocative. If traditional methods of dismantling or removing leadership is through the ballot box, and the oft-repeated point about, this election is a fix, and it just goes on and on. What are the alternatives?
I think democracy is really our best bet still in today's day and age. There's incredible young people driving that forward. Even, as I mentioned, in Kenya, the tax bill protests were a perfect example of youth driving that forward. So it's not just about the ballot box, it's beyond the ballot box, about civic engagement. You have that even in South Africa, for example, people sort of driving up voter engagement with, people who are trying to get people to care about their neighborhoods and communities and run for ward councillor. So I think the ballot box is one aspect of it, but it has to be about civic engagement and caring at the community level too. And I'm actually quite impressed with how young people do care. I have a lot of young people in my network who are taking on the challenge to both drive up civic engagement and get involved, whether it's public service or politically as well.
And I mean, you mentioned that you're very much, you play in the youth space, right? And of course, you've probably mentioned young people maybe 5 times in our conversation already, and that's great, right? How then do we galvanize the young people specifically, not just in terms of political power, but also economic advantage, to the point where if those politicians who are there, in extra time or injury time, I should say, are staying on, that without even realizing it, the power shifts to the young people because they actually set the agenda of a country.
Yeah, I do care passionately about this subject. So I work and with Harambee Youth Employment Accelerator. We have, over 15 years of experience turning, looking at how young people can be included in the economy, but not as a charitable case, but more as a reason to power economies forward. And this is, I think, the mindset that needs to shift. We need to be seeing it as not ceding power or making space or a zero-sum opportunity. But every engagement I've had with young people in my life has been one of incredible, it's a generative process where you create more opportunity. Young people are full of ideas. And I think the young people of Africa in particular, I mean, I work with investors who come to Africa to create jobs, and they're blown away by the young people's talent, resilience, competence, empathy, and with a little bit of skilling, a little bit of opportunity and support, we can go a long way. So for me, I think it's about, as everyday citizens, but also as leaders, making space for young people, but really turning that into how we can create something new, because I think that's where our imagination sometimes fails us.
I want to ask you one question about the concept of, continental citizenry, but we'll do that after this.
Life is full of surprises, but your insurance premiums shouldn't be. Savings on your car insurance is a sure thing with MyWay, leaving your wallet smiling every month. Switch to MyWay and save up to 40% on your car insurance premiums today to live your way.
Real people, real cars, real savings. For a quote, visit myway.co.za. Premiums are risk profile dependent. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply. MyWay. Live your way.
From Cairo to Cape Town, Lagos to Nairobi, Africa lives here on SAFM. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
Well, fascinating conversation we're having at the SAFM Roundtable, the Africa Day Roundtable, really, with different commentators speaking. And I mean, just some of the names we've had already. Dr. Neo Ramwapi, Intobi Zoda Msani, Mankitla Felix, amongst many others. We'll hopefully get others too, William Gomede as well. And right now we are talking to Sharmi Surya Narayan. Sharmi, I just want to stay with you about that point about global citizenry, or rather continental citizenry. What do you understand by this? Do you have a view on that? That we African, no matter where we are, Kenya, South Africa, but we one, or are we not?
I think we absolutely are, but it depends on the level. And I think I mentioned politically and economically. I think when it comes to identity, however, we need to coalesce around this concept of African, just sheer numbers, right? I mean, I work with folks from the global south, and India is 1 billion, China is 1 billion, and unfortunately Africa, we're 54 countries and 1 billion. And it's very difficult for us to get messages across, both narrative, but in practically getting investors to come to multiple countries. If we had the Continental Free Trade Agreement set up and running, we would be able to actually convince more people to come to multiple countries to set up shop quite easily. I think there's much more fundamental ethos. A lot of your guests have spoken to this, which is that concept of an African identity, which I think supersedes that of political and economic realities as well. And I think we have it intuitively, but I think we need to lean into it. So it's not just rhetoric, and it's not just something that you celebrate on one day in the year, but can actually truly feel. And it's something that we can give as a gift to the world, because ultimately I think being African is being African in spirit, and having this sense of shared humanity and sense of shared purpose that can actually unite us and create a really quite a proud and bold future for all of us.
I mean, to be clear, then African identity is not necessarily like a cultural identity, meaning that it doesn't mean everybody has to think and act and talk and dress the same way and eat the same foods. In the same way one would expect maybe China a lot more homogenous. Having said that, India may be perceived as homogenous, but actually is not, isn't it? So it's more about, as you said, African spirit, as opposed to comparing whether we eat the same foods and dress the same way, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's merit in us celebrating our individual cultures. No question. We have to honor that. I mean, it comes from Kenya, where Ngugi wa Thiong'o, the great Kenyan writer, wrote in Kikuyu, and he passed away last year. He was proudly, fiercely, proud of his language and his heritage, but he was also proudly African. So I think you can do both. And I think that is about the spirit of being African as much as it is celebrating our heritage and our culture. And the two can coexist. And I think we've shown that Africans in particular have this propensity to being able to do both. But fundamentally, it's about understanding who we are as humans and having that fundamental empathy and connection to each other and a sense of compassion. And I think that, for me, is what truly makes us African, in addition to all of the celebration of our cultural heritage.
Okay, we'll continue talking to you later on, but I'm going to put you on pause for now, Sharmi Surya Narayan. Thanks for your time. Just for now, on the SAfm Roundtable. Let me bring in Blaise Kasiyami. In fact, we chatted recently, I remember, Executive Director of the Northwest House of Refuge. Blaise, appreciate you connecting with us on this very special Africa Day.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Greeting to listeners and to all the guests in the studio.
Thank you so much. Now, I think the conversation we just had was so important. I want to pick up on that and get you to talk about, when we talk about the oneness of Africa linked to our Ubuntu, I mean, in practical terms, how do you explain that?
Living together, working together for the best of the entire Africa. But if someone can listen to me now may doubt about what I'm saying, living together, working together for the interest of entire Africa, because of the boundaries, the borders, the visions of our leaders. That's what Ubuntu doesn't look as a reality for the entire Africa. But Africa is a Ubuntu spirit. As Africa is a togetherness. And I do believe that we will reach there. We will reach there. There are works to be done, but we'll reach there. We are closer to be a united Africa. I do believe so. Yes.
So when you say we're closer to being a united Africa, what's your proof for saying that?
Proof are what we are seeing on the ground. The agitation we are seeing on the ground, the mistrust that we are seeing on the ground. Now it's time for us to reflect on it. It's time for our leaders to sit and to start thinking what kind of true response that we can give in those situations, those challenges that Africa is going, so that we may have one Africa. That's why I'm saying we are closer there, because now each country's, the youth, the government, they can see that there's a need for Africa to sit down and to think about the future of Africa, because the whole world are looking Africa. Everything the world needs now is directed to Africa. It's time for leaders to have a true dialogue so that we may reach the goal of Ubuntu, the true Ubuntu.
Now, interesting, I mean, you talk of the one Africa, and one may say we don't have that because the continent has been carved up through colonization, over generations now. So if we then blame others for that, then what blame do we apportion to the current leadership of the many 50-plus African countries who appear, and I am generalizing, who appear to make little effort to creating this Ubuntu spirit? In fact, a lot of what they do effectively divides even people within their own countries.
Exactly. What Africa now is doing is imitating what is happening to the West. Even our young youth now on the ground, on the street, are getting inspired by the West. But what we are seeing as division, fragmentations, are not our cultures. Africa is not a continent of divisions. We have to go beyond the fear so that we may maybe embrace integrations as tools of unity. Immigrations as tools of unity. I do believe that the future of Africa is in integrations, is in unity, so that we may be an Africa that everyone wants us to be.
Okay.
Even though today
pause
it
on that.
look like Africa is one.
All right. Pause on that. Future unity. Africa is one. Even if some people don't believe that, the question is how then do we turn that around? And there's more to come here on the special Africa Day broadcast on SAfm Radio as part of the National Pulse Show. So great that you connect with us. More from Blaise Kasiyami and all the other panelists, and we'll continue talking to them in the last hour of the show. But for now, first things first, the news at 5.
Thanks, Ashraf. Top stories at 5. Ramaphosa speaks on Africa's response to the Ebola outbreak and Mogotsi's case postponed to Thursday. Good afternoon, I'm Eva Chipa. President Cyril Ramaphosa says Africa has the expertise, institutions and leadership to mount a strong response to the Ebola outbreak. The World Health Organization says more than 200 suspected deaths have been recorded since Ebola was declared a public health emergency of international concern. Speaking during an urgent Africa CDC high-level ministerial meeting, Ramaphosa stressed that speed, unity and public trust will be critical to containing the outbreak.
Now we encourage other member states, African financial institutions, philanthropy and African private sector to join this effort urgently. I particularly welcome the mobilization of African business leaders who are stepping forward to support this response. Their engagement reflects a growing understanding that health security is also economic security. It's also development security and the security of our entire continent.
Meanwhile, the head of the African Center for Disease Control and Prevention, Jean Kaseya, has defended the time it took the organization to coordinate a response to the outbreak. So far, there have been over 200 deaths linked to the virus in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Dr. Kaseya told the BBC they had to investigate several initial cases and started drafting a response within 3 days.
The world must even congratulate Africa CDC because on the 15th of May, Africa CDC declared this outbreak when we got evidence that more than one country was infected. Second, we immediately started to interact with authorities who declared this outbreak the same day and started to work on the plan.
In other news, more than 140 people have been arrested following incidents of looting, public violence and damage to property linked to the shutdown in Bloemfontein and surrounding areas. Free State Police spokesperson Thabo Qovane says the crowd stormed a grocery store in Bloemspruit in Phase 6 before police intervened. He says incidents were reported in various areas, including Butchabela and Bergman Square, where suspects were arrested for looting and the possession of suspected stolen goods. More officers have been deployed to restore calm. Meanwhile, the leader of the National Service Delivery Forum, Potso Motoko, has called on residents of Mangaung and Bloemfontein to remain calm and not vandalize infrastructure and local shops.
We are not impressed with this behavior of unrest and looting, and we condemn it in the strongest possible terms. However, we also concerned about our government failures that still continues to perpetuate these situations. We indicated that we need to regulate the spaza shops. People were required to register. There was a funding, 500 million, that the minister promised to allocate to spaza shops, but that did not happen.
And lastly, the case involving SAFA President Danny Jordan and his 3 co-accused has been postponed to the 27th of August by the Palm Ridge Magistrate Court in Ekurhuleni. They are facing charges of fraud and conspiracy to commit fraud amounting to 1.3 million rand. Jordan and his 3 co-accused, which include SAFA CEO Hruni Hluyo, are accused of unlawfully using SAFA resources between 2014 and 2018. The case remains in the pre-trial phase as Jordan and Hluyo are challenging the search and seizure operation which was conducted at Safa House in March 2024 and want the matter to be struck off the roll. Recapping the top story at 5, President Cyril Ramaphosa says Africa has the expertise, institutions and leadership to mount a strong response to the Ebola outbreak. I'll be back at the bottom of the hour. For SAfm News, I'm Eva Chipa.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg first up, and the highway's fairly standard today. The N1 South, Beclude out of Willie Mandela is slow. The N3 heavy from Limbro Park down towards Germiston. That's fairly normal these days. And the N1 North getting up through Midrand, just busy between Beclude and the exit to New Road. Once you get past New Road, it eases up, and it's not a bad run through Pretoria until you get up towards about the Montana exit, just going up towards Sefaka-Makato. That's quite slow. Pretoria East busy this afternoon with lights down on Solomon Mashlangu at Delphi, and then Garsfontein at Rubenstein. So also coming east on Garsfontein through that traffic on Solomon Mishlangu down towards Rubenstein. Very slow going that side as well. Durban, some big traffic on the N3 out of town today from Sherwood all the way through to Pavilion Mall. Inbound is pretty sluggish from Pavilion down to Spaghetti Junction as well. Mgeni Road out through Springfield Park. That's heavy towards the N2 on-ramp. And if you're on the N2 North, the breakdown before Mhlanga has been cleared. But that traffic run up from the Kwamashu side remains really busy. If you're trying to get through to Gateway or up towards Belito, a lot of traffic on that run through today. Ashburton, Pietermaritzburg section looking okay at this stage, clear. Leaving Cape Town, Stellenbosch area, the R44 to Jamestown. That's quite a heavy backlog of traffic. The M1 Service Road out of town, busy passing Canal Walk down towards the exit to the N7. And the N2 heavy, pick up queues just after the elevated freeway in the city centre on Nelson Mandela Boulevard. And you stay in traffic right through to Bunga Avenue in the Langa area. With your traffic update, I'm Rob Byrne.
You can become a victim of a legal problem: wrongful arrest, assault, uncontested divorce, rental disputes, maintenance matters, or labor problems. It can happen to you. Clientele Legal provides tough professional lawyers for an affordable monthly premium. Our legal team is standing by to assist you 24 hours a day. Join today. SMS SAFM to 32195. That's SAFM to 32195. Clientele General is an authorized FSP and licensed non-life insurer. T's and C's online. Standard rates apply.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Angola, one of Africa's top oil producers, a nation rising, fast, bold, alive. From Luanda's energy to the power of Kalandula Falls, this is beauty in motion. Home of Kizomba, birthplace of Semba, music that travels, rhythm you can feel, a country shaped by struggle but defined by strength.
After independence in 1975, Angola faced a long civil war that lasted decades. A nation divided, people tested. But today, the story has changed. Peace rebuilt, cities rising, a future reclaimed. Rebuilding, reclaiming, rising.
Angola turns pain into power. In every step, in every sound, there is life. Angola, rhythm, resilience, rebirth.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. In case you missed it.
For anybody who is talking about NHI, which is an amazing thing, all I say to any minister, public health, give up your medical aid right now and come and join the healthcare system queue now. And if you can lead from that way, NHI will be implemented immediately. Come on the ground. Not that in an office, on a telephone, write up 10,000 papers. Come and don't pick up the phone for us to help your family member to jump the queues. That's the reality that we have to deal with.
Professor Adam Mohammed, Senior Doctor, Head of Internal Medicine.
That was National Briefing this morning with Kathy Mutlatlana. As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Xolani Gwala will be back again for you 6 to 9 Monday here on SAFM.
And
thanks, Xolani. Good morning and welcome to Morning Talk with me, Kim Gabadeli.
The name is Bongi Kwala. Good to be with you till midday today. Let's engage South Africa.
Welcome to Morning Talk on SAFM, South Africa's news and information leader, with me, Rowena Bird.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. Wherever you are in the world, SAFM 104 to 107 is accessible. We're also streaming live on Facebook, X, and YouTube at SAFM Radio. We acknowledge and appreciate everyone tuning in and watching our streams. Stay with SAFM 104 to 107 as we bring you Commission Live, breaking stories, and thought-provoking lectures. SAFM, leading the conversations that move us. Celebrating African thought, African resilience, and African possibility. This is SAFM. The National Pulse with Ashraf Garda on SAFM. You're listening to the National Pulse, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
Well, welcome back to the third hour of the National Pulse. In fact, the third hour of the special SAfm Africa Day Roundtable, and it's been fascinating. And what we're going to do in this hour, I think to a large degree, besides maybe taking some of your thoughts as members of the Pulse community, also we touched on youth earlier on, but to just pay more attention, not just to them as a galvanizing force around active citizenry, but in terms of what are the unique selling points or propositions of the youth? What gives Africa's youth the edge? Where are they able to compete with the rest of the world? Because I'm looking at exciting things that may come up. So hold that thought. We'll touch on it in a moment. But in the meantime, another bit of exciting news. South Africa, SABC TV licenses have partnered with Capitec to make paying your TV license simple, affordable, and accessible. So if you're a Capitec client, sign into the app and click on Transact. Next, select Pay Bills. Then click Pay At and enter your reference number to complete your payment. It's as easy as that. You'll receive an instant SMS confirmation. Now you can keep your stories alive and your screens shining bright. TV licenses, pay yours, make a difference.
This Africa Day, SAfm goes continental.
It certainly does, and it has been a fascinating continental conversation so far, and so will continue. So we'll talk about the youth in more detail in terms of what they, what do they bring to the African continent, right? So we've had 5 guests. I won't mention 6 guests. In fact, I will go through all the names now until we start talking to them specifically. But just before the break, we were touching on some aspects that I thought I wanted to bring up once again, and we do have. Let me bring in Blaise once again. Blaise, we spoke earlier on, and I want to get your thoughts on an issue I know you feel strongly about that we touched on earlier around migration and citizenry. Which country do you belong to, and if you belong to one, does that mean you do not belong to another? Would you like to share your thoughts on that? Okay, Blaise, do we have you there? No, perhaps not. Let's see if we can reconnect with Blaise in just a second. In fact, what I'll do then, let me just get to the panelists who are sitting in front of me. Firstly, with Mankitla Felix, right? Now, I want to just focus slightly in terms of what can the African youth, what are their talents, what are their gifts, what gives them an advantage versus, other economic blocks in the world?
Look, I think for me, what we have is ideas, right? We have so many ideas as African youth. I'll just put it in that form. But the unfortunate thing is that the resources are a problem, right? That's the advantage that we have. And I think one of the other things I've turned to look at is that we're very creative and very innovative as Africans or youth in Africa. But again, I think I mentioned this earlier when I said, is the systems that are supposed to support us ready? Are we moving too fast? Right? Because at the end of the day, it's quite sad if you travel all over Africa and you see brilliant minds, that are sitting with PhDs and all of that, but there's no work for them. That's why I think from my end, from an entrepreneurial perspective, that's when you seek for those opportunities to see where they're hanging fruits. How do I then add what I know and make it work for me?
So does systemic failure on the one hand, and this equation that doesn't quite fit.
Yes.
High numbers of graduates don't equate to jobs.
Right.
Does that inadvertently galvanize an entrepreneurial mindset? And is that good for the African continent?
To a certain degree, yes. I mean, I always say to some of the people I mentor, and I always say to them, don't ever expect government or institutions to be the light for you, right? Like when you talk about African future, don't depend on government or institutions. But it's very important to actually focus on the relationships, because one of the most amazing thing that makes us Africans is the relationships aspect of it. It's the trust aspect of it. Because you do not work with anyone outside of my own country if you don't trust you. Remember, you're different, regardless of whether you like it or not. That means that I don't know what your intentions are, but I need to know who you are. That's when I spoke about earlier on when I mentioned being able to understand people's cultures, respect them the same way you expect them to respect your own. Because the minute you do that, then you open up this table where now people can trust you in order enough to work with.
And when you say, we lack resources,
Right.
just so that we're on the same page, what type of resources do we lack?
Empowering resources. That's how I look at it. I always say it's empowering resources because what she does, right, with the NGO, right, a lot of kids wish they could, like our government is not really pouring into us with the resources that we need. You have how many IT specialists that are sitting home with certification? Why don't we take that or empower them to open their own things or their own businesses instead of always wanting to enslave them to work for us at a minimal wage? We don't empower. Those are the resources. Empowering someone is a resource on its own, being able to enable them.
How do you empower? Well, when you say we should empower, should we be like one person, an employer empowering his employees? Should it be government employing others? Should it empowering others? Who should do the empowering, and how? What's the practical expression of empowerment?
I think I'm going to use the word leadership. I consider myself a leader with the environments that I work in. So everything that I hold, I empower the people that work beneath me. And by that report to me, right? Because if there's one thing, I know this is going to sound very crazy. I don't believe in working for other people because I believe that in my own right, I'm a boss. In my own right, I'm a leader. Therefore, I expect to empower other kids to see the brilliance in them to stand tall as well to do that. So I said earlier to know that it starts with me. I want to be the change that I want to see in the world, but it only starts a day at a time. But I know that if I've touched you, and then you touch someone else, it's an extension of what my objective is from that regard.
Let me bring in fact, in Tommy Zodwa and Sani, you want to pick up on that just, again, youth, African youth, what for you do you see the magic? Where's the magic?
The magic is in, I brought two mentees actually with me to...
They should wave if they can hear.
Yes, Deborah and basically young people need spaces. They need to be in environments like this. They need exposure. They need to know that their voices matter. And even when they're in these spaces, it should, accumulate in encouraging them to say, it is possible. If Zodwa can do it or Ntombi can do it, I can do it as well. And it's about being visible in things that they maybe never imagined are possible. And we were just talking about it earlier to say that, because I was just going through the motions within, I was saying, look, I started this particular social enterprise during COVID, where I lost my job and I was like, okay, I have all these skills and knowledge, what do I do with them? And I'm still within the bracket of being categorized as youth, so what do I do with that? And I enforced and made sure that I make the most of the time that I had. Started it, and then it accumulated into traveling into Africa, meeting other young people who are doing far amazing things, and collaborations. I even met Molia, and I've met so many, even Blaze, I've met so many other amazing individuals that are doing amazing things. And it also gives me the opportunity to bring along young people to say, look, your voice matters and your visibility matters. Just get yourself in these spaces. If I can bring you along, you make the most of the opportunity.
Well, I want to ask you about those touch points, and we'll do that right after this.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Togo, West Africa. A narrow nation in West Africa, bordered by Ghana, Benin, and Burkina Faso, with a coastline along the Gulf of Guinea, a country where cultures, trade routes, and traditions intersect. French is the official language. You and Kabia are among the many local languages shaping national identity.
Togo gained independence in 1960, a nation shaped by both resilience and political continuity. Agriculture, phosphate mining, and trade drive the economy. The port of Lomé serves as a major gateway for regional commerce. But challenges remain: youth unemployment, political tensions, and economic inequality. Still, Togo continues to grow through entrepreneurship, culture, and regional trade.
Togo connects people through movement and resilience. In every market, in every rhythm, in every journey, there is connection. Togo, connected, resilient, evolving.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. What does being African mean to you? Join the conversation this Africa Day on SAFM. You are listening to the National Pulse with Ashraf Garda.
Well, we're gonna continue talking till about 5:30 on this particular theme, but of course, then the rest of it will take calls as well from yourself. I just want to end up the conversation we had. So you were talking about the young people. So how do you increase their touch points? Because if what you're saying is they need to be in spaces like this, the more touch points they connect with, the better the chances that doors will open up for them, isn't it? Practically, what advice would you give, well, not just to all of us here, but I mean to the entire country listening in?
Yes. So it is important as a young person when you're going to choose a career path to understand how best you can set yourself apart. You know, they say that a lot, but maybe in terms of practicality, what that looks like is volunteering, is making sure that you become visible. And you know, sometimes you don't get the necessary money when you're volunteering, but the exposure that comes with that. And funny enough, we were talking about it saying, sometimes when you do too much, you become overqualified. And how do you apply to a position where you're applying to report to a manager, but you fulfill the directory role? And so those dynamics is what young South Africans are facing, who are encouraged to be entrepreneurs. And now when they have to put in their CVs, this is what I have done, it becomes either an intimidating factor or a limiting factor, where where's the space for them? And so when she said resources, valid. Resources monetarily, spaces, opportunities, visibility, being heard and understood. And it is something that we in South Africa need to foster. Young people are growing in numbers on the continent. They are wanting to have their voices heard, but they are needing also for them to be taken serious. When they say, theoretically, this is what I want, I need resources, let us meet them halfway. Start piloting the ideas in your community. Start small. I even said to someone, I was like, collect 1 rand. There are gentlemen who we categorized under drug abusers who would ask for 1 rand. Ask for 1 rand as donations towards the initiative that you want to create. Sell apples. Do something. Be innovative, as they tend to say, but also try to foster that. Be encouraged not to give up on yourself.
I tell you what, I'm listening to you and suddenly the world is a much better place. Okay, I got that. I think the point is well made, right? We're probably going to speak to 2 of the young people that you brought along. You see, you opened up doors for them. I want to just bring in Blaise Kasiyama once again. Blaise, we chatted earlier about other things, but I'm particularly interested to know, because I know it's an area that you talk about. What is your take on migration and African solidarity and the challenges that migration, brings to different countries, and how people, citizens, respond to people from other countries migrating to their countries on the African continent? Blaise? Yep. No. Let me just see. Blaise, have I got you there? No, we don't. Okay, let's see if we can connect with him later. Important questions are not going to get answered, unfortunately, just for now. Dr. Neo, you've been quiet for about 40 minutes, which is quite a long time. I'm going to talk about the lighties now, the younger people, right? Yeah. Like you've been listening to the conversations, and what we're saying is, seat at the table. How do we get them to get a seat at the table? What's your thoughts?
Okay, I'm going to start at home. I have a 17-year last-born son who's doing grade 11. He's very good with social media. I mean, Netflix, if you have any problem, he comes, he fixes it. Anything, that is IT related. And he's good with mathematics, pure maths. We say, when you finish matric, you must start something on your own, You don't need to go to university and do all these things, get a BA, and I have a PhD, but I'm still struggling with my bills. The second point, I'm working with I think
So that story about the 17-year-old is your son?
Yes, it's my son.
It's a true story?
Yes, a
And
true
you told
story.
him, don't bother about university.
Yes.
Go make
Just
some money.
start your stuff. The second one is that this shirt is from Ghana. I'm working with young, I hope they are young, guys who they take clothes, even jeans. I thought it would be too much if I wear it, but they color them with organic colors. It doesn't go out. And then when I wear them here, they ask me, where did you get that from? You know, like the watch, they want to know, how did you get this? And I'm thinking, this is a business opportunity. So I'm trying to explore that with them, you know, with some of these things. But I think the youth, they really don't need to populate the university. There's just so much across the continent that they can do.
It sounds terrible. Go to university, remain unemployed. Okay. Molia, hey, don't take my word for that, by the way. Molia, your thoughts on that? Just in terms of, touch points, young people, seat at the table, how do we do that?
One critical thing I think we need to do is teach the youth to think outside of the box. We need to get out of that colonial mindset to say you can only work 9 to 5, you can only have this as a career. The world has changed so much, and there's so much that we can do. They've got so many skills that are transferable in different fields, in different areas. So if we start teaching them, for instance, you're good with social media, there's a company here that needs a social media manager. You're good with art, there's, you can start teaching youth how to express themselves through art. You can help those that have been traumatized by various events in their lives learn to express themselves through the art and heal themselves and heal their communities. So that's my touch point on that. Thinking outside of the box, just explore the world, explore your environment.
And when you tell them to think outside the box, they'll say, what are you talking about? Like, meaning, how do you practically encourage them to say, because thinking outside the box means being innovative, in essence, right? So for someone who's not wired to be innovative, how do they switch on to become innovative? Like, what would be your switch on, switch off spark plug?
That would be tricky. It's not that they'll be able to do it on their own. I think through the mentorship programs that are available, that's what will help them get exposed to different to becoming more innovative, because then they're going to see what's happening and it will give them ideas. And from there, they're going to share with others around them. But if we just keep it school-based and say, school is only your curriculum, you must only know this version of history, you must only know your mathematics, they're not going to think that way.
Okay. Let's wrap up onto news. So it's the last words from all of you. So I'm going to ask each one of you to give me one sentence. And it's unscripted. You can say what you want. But a sentence of hope. But the key condition is it can only be one sentence, one short sentence. Go for it.
As Africans, we need to unite. Ubuntu is the resolution.
Got it. Yours?
I think for me, it's let's not forget where we come from as Africans and know that together we can actually do amazing things for the future of this continent.
All right, there we are. Thank you for that, right?
Africa Unite, Bob Marley said it, and I'm saying it.
Africa Unite, got that.
And I'll sort of echo my sister there, but yes, we're more powerful together than we are apart.
Absolutely. So I'll tell you what, the show is not over. It just means your voices have been muted, because we're going to get some of the callers calling in and maybe get some young people, and that all will come up still on this special SAfm Africa Day broadcast, right? Roundtable, that is. Right now, 5:30, news headlines.
Thanks, Ashraf. In your news making headlines for this hour, the Speaker of the National Assembly, Tokoti Tiza, has released the names of the members of different political parties who will be serving on the impeachment committee. In other news, a 13-year-old boy has been shot and killed in Elysis River on the Cape Flats. And lastly, President Cyril Ramaphosa says Africa has the expertise, institutions and leadership to mount a strong response to the Ebola outbreak. I'll be back at the top of the hour for SAfm News. I'm Eva Chipa.
SAfm. SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg 10-3 South, the heaviest highway today. Big backlogs there. Limbo Park right through Edenvale, through Kalulis and down to the M2 Heldenace exit to Germiston before you're out of that. Quite a backlog as well, home to Lenasia. Traffic on the N12 Potch Highway, sitting from the N1 Deadman's Bend through Eldos and down towards the Klipspruit Valley exit. Looks like something's happened there on your way towards Lenasia and Protea Glen. M1 South struggling to get off at William Mandela queues from Buccleuch. Interchange. Midrand not looking too bad today. And Pretoria not too bad on the N1 until you get north of the N4 Emilafeni Highway. Then it backs heavily through towards the Montana exit. Crossing Durban, big traffic today. N3 outbound from Sherwood through Spaghetti Junction right out to Pavilion Mall. If you're on your way to Pinetown, trying to get past that out towards Pietermaritzburg, there's a big backlog of traffic. Sherwood through to Pavilion. Also another crash on the N2 between Kwamashu and Gateway. N2 north backlogging into that from Queenlandy Drive, and southbound busy having a look at it and having to hit the brakes as well. Cape Town, N1, outbound City Centre to Brackenfell, out towards Okavango Road heavy. Plenty of traffic on Marine Drive today from Pardon Island right through to Sunset Beach. And police are dealing with an outbreak of unrest just after the airport. N2 outbound before the R300. They're on the scene, they're dealing with a large crowd, but if you're heading out on the N2, there's a really big backlog from the airport exit. With your traffic updates, I'm Rob Byrne.
This is SAfm Sports with Tuming Khabele.
Starting off with football this hour, Abdeslam Mwadu won the Coach of the Month award for the first time after leading Orlando Pirates to 3 wins and 1 draw in 4 matches in the Betway Premiership. Pirates went on to win the Betway Premiership title, ending a 14-year wait for the championship. Mwadu beat competition from Miguel Cardoso of Mamelodi Sundowns and Bernard Parker of TS Galaxy. Meanwhile, Pirates goalkeeper Sipho Chain was named Player of the Month after an impressive performance in May. He kept 4 clean sheets in 4 matches and finished the season with a record 21 clean sheets, playing a major role in Pirates' title-winning campaign, while Brighton Ndlovu was also recognized for his strong performances during the month, walking away with Goal of the Month. Meanwhile, the road to this year's South African Football Association elections took an interesting turn yesterday as the Ordinary Congress moved to expel the 4 National Executive Committee members who were suspended. SAFA held constitutional and ordinary congresses at the Birchwood Hotel in Boksburg this past weekend, with the suspension of Gladwin White, Monde Montiwa, Rapeleng Setlare and Emma Hendricks was one of the contentious points. Meanwhile, in terms of rugby, double World Cup winning Springbok star Cheslin Colby is reported close to making a sensational return to the Stormers. The experienced winner could join the Cape side by the 1st of July as part of the Stormers' long-term project 2029. Colby's possible arrival would be a major boost for the Stormers after they lost out on winger Dylan Mott, who is expected to join the Bulls from Griquas after the Currie Cup. In cricket, Proteas woman coach Mandla Mashimbi says that his mind is already at the T20 World Cup final, which will be played at Lord's in London on the 5th of July. Mashimbi was speaking ahead of the team's departure for England, which will happen in 2 batches, today and tomorrow, and they'll be attempting to finally win the tournament after making the final in the previous 2 editions, losing to Australia and New Zealand respectively. And Mashimbi has expressed confidence that they are part of the favourites to lift the trophy and just have to figure out how to get over that final hurdle.
I'm already at Lord's. I'm just looking after the process now to get there. I think South Africa has shown over the years, that they are to be reckoned with. We didn't get to those finals by chance. We really beat some big teams in that process. I think every team knows that, South Africa are not going to be an easy pushover. But we're going to go beyond that. We're not a pushover. We're going to go in there and thinking that we are the best team in the world, even though rankings don't suggest so. But we know in terms of reaching 3 finals in succession, it shows that you're doing something right, which makes you part of the best teams in the world. If you don't do that, then you'll be somewhere in the middle, but we're not in the middle. We're sitting at the same table as they're sitting now.
In tennis, four-time champion Iga Swiatek powered into the Roland Garros second round with dominant straight sets win over Australian teenager Emerson Jones. Swiatek playing at a Grand Slam tournament for the first time since linking up with Rafa Nadal's former coach Francisco Roig showed flashes of her best tennis in a 6-1 and 6-2 victory. And next up for her is Sarah Bechlek, who for a place in the last 32, and that is happening on Wednesday. Well, that's it. It is a wrap from my side.
Investing shouldn't feel risky. It should give you security and good returns. Earn up to 7.25% interest per annum with an ABSA Cash Invest Tracker for an investment of 100,000 rands or more. Your capital is guaranteed with immediate access to your funds. That's minimum risk, maximum benefit. ABSA Private Banking customers can invest from just R1. Open via the ABSA Banking app, a branch, a private banker, or 0860 111 515. Your story matters. ABSA is an authorized financial services provider. T's and C's apply.
As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Ghana, West Africa. The first sub-Saharan African country to gain independence in 1957. A nation that lit the path for liberation across the continent. Rich in gold, cocoa and culture. A land where history and progress walk together. Ghana is home to over 80 languages, including Akan, Yu, Ga, Dagbani. A nation where diversity is not divided. It is unified through shared identity and pride. From Accra's coastline to the Ashanti's region cultural heartland, heritage lives in everyday life. Kente cloth carries meaning in every thread. Festivals bring communities together in color and rhythm. And storytelling remains central to identity. A stable democracy in West Africa, a nation known for unity, hospitality, and cultural pride. Ghana leads with legacy and lifts with vision. In every harvest, in every heartbeat, in every voice, there is pride. Ghana is historic, united, and strong.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. In case you missed it.
This actually seems to be an absurd conversation. Hundreds of millions have been spent on water tankers when what we actually need is proper water infrastructure.
If you have competent people and engineers and scientists that are employed by municipalities to identify the root cause and then implement a structured plan, long-term plan to address this. But I don't see that. I haven't heard any plans from the municipalities as to how they're going to reduce the water losses, what is the root cause. So it seems like we're just running around in circles, but we're not moving in any direction.
Director at AHL Water and water expert Aisha Lahar.
That was the Daily Discourse with Joanne Joseph.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
Right, let's get to all those numbers. Jimmy Moya hosts the SAFM Market Update from 6. Jimmy, what's top of your agenda now? Jimmy, do I have you there? No, maybe we will reconnect with Jimmy in just a second. Let me remind you, so by and large, this broadcast has been dedicated to Africa Day. And perhaps it may be wise for you to look into the history of why is today called Africa Day, and then the impact that it's made at the time when it was formed. I'm talking of the Organization of African Unity, and subsequent days where this day has been commemorated. But if I go back to the very beginning, for me, it's less about just celebrating one day and having fun and urara, but more about using it as a galvanizing force. If you do that, then you find that there's extra meaning and extra responsibility. So almost less about celebration. There's nothing wrong with celebrating, but less in celebration, more in investment. How do you invest in Africa Day or in Africa starting on Africa Day? Jimmy Moya is with us now, right? Jimmy, top of your agenda?
Good afternoon, Ashraf.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good to connect.
Oh, fantastic. I'm in our Cape Town studios, so connectivity seems to be trying to rear its ugly head, but we will not let that take place. What we're going to be taking a look at on the show today, we're going to be looking at the latest from Netcare as well as from Pick n Pay. I'm going to speak to Sean Summers, Chief Executive Officer at Pick n Pay. I want to get his thoughts around the turnaround strategy. I heard earlier on when you were chatting to Makwe Masilela that the numbers were rather disappointing from a market's perspective. I want to get the CEO's thoughts around how that company turnaround strategy is coming along. We know we are 2 years into a plan that hopefully we can get resolved over the next 3 years. So I want to get his thoughts around what's happening within that business. We're also going to speak to Chief Executive Officer at the Netcare Group, Dr. Richard Friedland, around their interim numbers. Then we take a look at Africa Day with the team at Nedbank. They held quite the celebration for Africa Day today. We're going to be taking a look at that and seeing where the African continent sits at the moment and how it is that we move it forward. And we have a conversation with the Chief Executive Officer at Maziv on the recent transactions they've undergone. We know, of course, of the big Vodacom transaction, but they also recently acquired the licensing from HeroTel to expand into some of HeroTel's markets. So we're going to take a look at that and see where that puts that business. And then we wrap up the show this particular Monday with a personal finance conversation, taking a look at younger people opting out of medical aid benefits or medical aid packages purely because it is no longer affordable, and affordability is becoming quite the concern. We speak to the Board of Healthcare Funders around that and see what we make of that. Before we get to those conversations, though, a sense of some of the market movements that have been taking place throughout the day. It's been a green start to the week. It is the final trading week of the month, and it looks as though we could be in for a rather positive one, largely off the back of those rumors that have been circulating and the confirmations of those rumors around the fact that we might be nearing the end of the war in the Middle East. Now, we know we've been having this conversation for quite some time, so markets not too excited about the announcement, but still loving the optimism nonetheless. The Rand, 16 Rand 30 against the US dollar. The British Pound almost below 22 Rand at 22 Rand and 1 cent. The Euro broken below 19 Rand, 18 Rand 98. 1 Australian dollar would cost you 11 Rand 69 cents at the moment. The commodity side of things, the gold price holding steady, $4,567 a fine ounce. Brent crude just below $100 a barrel. Silver pricing just below $78 a fine ounce. Platinum hasn't gone back above $2,000 a fine ounce just yet, but it is dangerously close, about $25 away there. Palladium still below $1,500. And if we look at equity markets, probably the biggest movers on the day. Local markets, resource stocks were up 4.6%, industrials up 1.7%, financials up 1.4%, the all share up 2.4%, and the top 40 up 2.6%. That wasn't where all of the positivity ended. International markets also having a lot of green. I don't think I see a single red market on my side. If I'm looking at Asian markets, the biggest winner was the Nikkei in Tokyo, up 2.8%. We know that US markets are closed for Memorial Day today, so the movements there would likely only be happening on the futures side of things and not all of the US markets, but even the futures markets are reporting some green movements. The DAX in Germany, the biggest winner in European markets, up 1.9%. The FTSE in London also closed on the day on the day's trade for a banking holiday. So we're going to look at these and other market movements when we come back a little later on. For now, Ashraf, back to you.
Right, perfect. Thanks for that, Jimmy. Tomorrow is, well, you've got a show to do just now. Others will chat again tomorrow.
As we celebrate 90 years of existence, SAFM takes you back to the voices that shaped a nation.
Berea, the home of the four bespectacled Tisson brothers, all of whom work or have worked on the English service, particularly Audio Mix and Radio Today. Watch how the night proceeds towards dawn.
And
I need a lot of consoling when I started the early program. People couldn't believe that John O'Donnell and B. Reid were chosen for the early morning program, because if ever two announcers used to want to swap a morning shift for an afternoon shift, John and I would do it.
90 years of trusted voices. This is SAFM. As part of Africa Month, now we are profiling
Botswana, Southern Africa. A land of vast wilderness and rare beauty, home to the Okavango Delta, where water brings life to the desert, a place where elephants roam freely and nature thrives. Botswana is one of Africa's most stable democracies, known for peace, governance, and steady growth.
Botswana gained independence in 1966 from one of the world's poorest nations to a model of stability in Africa. A nation shaped by its people, mainly Tswana communities, with languages such as Setswana at the heart of daily life and identity, a culture rooted in respect, unity and tradition. From Gaboron's growing cityscape to untouched savannas, life moves with quiet strength. Storytelling, community, and connection to land remain central to identity.
Botswana moves with calm strength and clear direction. In every river, in every horizon, in every voice, there is balance. Botswana is peaceful, steady, and enduring.
Africa Month on SAFM. Conversations, context, connection. Join Ashraf Garda for the SAFM Africa Roundtable, a powerful conversation about Africa's future. X at SAFM Radio and at Ashraf Garda.
So, be careful what you wish for, because we were speaking earlier on about young people and increasing their touch points and creating opportunities for them. And amongst the people we spoke about it was Intobizodwa Msani, the director of the African International Humanitarian Law Initiative. And then after talking to me, she sort of blurted out, "I've got two young people at the back there." So you see, when you scream, people listen and they see who you're screaming at. And now those two young people who were spectators are now participants.
Yes.
Thanks to you.
Okay. God is good.
Well, there you are. So you better tell us who they are.
All right. So next to me is Deborah and Entle. They are volunteers and a mentee within our organization. They are also volunteers who will be conducting human rights activations within Soweto at one of the schools in Naledi, where we are teaching young people about human rights, the importance of it, taking theory to practicality and helping them merge and understand better why is this constitution so important. And so they are not just students from UJ, but I'll let them also just speak a little bit about who they are, and hopefully I give back to you and hear their views.
Well, there we are. All right, so give me your name.
I'm Deborah.
All right, you're Deborah, so give me your story.
Okay, so my story is I'm a student athlete, right? And I'm a second-year psychology student at UJ and also a mentee. I've been a mentee for over a year now at IE Legacy. And yeah, that's my story. And
how did you discover Intobizodwa?
It was at church.
Tell us what happened.
It was at church, and I remember she was speaking to my sister about going overseas. She was going overseas. And then I was like, I also want to go overseas. And then I just asked her one day, like, how do you go overseas? And then she said, okay, from next year, we're going to start speaking about how we're going to enroll you into our program. So this was in 2025, where we had our first meeting, and she laid out, what it means to be a mentee under IE Legacy. And that's when I knew that this is what I wanted to do. Like, always giving back to the community is something that is very passionate to me. And I knew that, listen, when I give back to the community who gave to me, I just knew that I was going to make the world a better place.
And you did travel overseas then?
No, not yet.
Oh, okay. I was
not
going to
yet.
ask business or economy class, but we'll get to that later on. Right, fantastic. What about yours? Your name?
My name is Entle. I'm also a second-year student, psychology student at the University of UJ. I have always done volunteering throughout high school. Even last year, I volunteered for UNICEF, the United Nations for Children's Fund. And to be honest, volunteering for me comes from just the fact that I want to do more than just the bare minimum. We've always given the manual to go through school in the conventional way. Go study, get a job. But to be honest, you need to do more than that. You can't just give the bare minimum. You need to go the extra mile. So for me, volunteering has always been a thing of, I just want to do more than what I'm doing. I just want to add extra, and also helping the community as well. It makes a big impact. It makes me feel better as well. It's a healthy strategy to combat all of the stress that you go through as well. So, yeah.
Well, that's fabulous. How did that... Do you have also a church story or not?
Oh, no, my story is way more different.
No church story.
Yes, my story, I met Ms. Dombi through Deborah, because also at school, I'm part of the executive team for the Psychology Student Forum. So I was trying to venture out to see if there are any volunteering opportunities for psychology students. And Deborah came and spoke to me and said, there is an initiative and they are looking for volunteers. So it was a perfect timing type of thing, because I was looking for volunteering opportunities, and Deborah at the same time was also looking for more volunteering opportunities.
Fabulous. But I mean, you've now seen just how through speaking to one person and said, I'll show you the world, and now she's told another person, I'll show you the world. So like, oh, you can become a travel agent. Tell me more about them. I mean, in terms of now that they've come on board with you,
yes,
you obviously feel strongly enough to have brought them here as spectators, as the audience, and now they're talking to us, right? Tell me more about how they've grown. So, I mean, that's the essence of when we talk about investing in Africa's youth. That's really what it is.
Yes. So there's actually 6 of them in total at the current moment. There's 3 gentlemen and 3 ladies. And how we're wanting to see them evolve. Deborah was doing voluntary work for 5 days at Leratong Hospital, where it forms part of that getting exposure into the environment where you want to see yourself in your career path, but also participating in youth-based activities. So me getting the opportunity, also speaking to people like Molia, it is so important to come also and bring them along so that they can get the exposure, learn what happens behind the scenes, what does it look like. It's not all rosy, so you sit here for hours and you speak, but it's also important about knowing how to express yourself, what are the views that you want the world to understand, and how are you participating in that. So I've seen Deborah grow significantly in the past year, where we started. Initially, I needed to just get her into alignment with, do you understand how you need to actually start to think in terms of how do you get that job opportunity, how do you set yourself apart, and why is that important? So it's the same conversations we're having with the 5 other volunteers, and it is so important that not just from the university perspective, but in the civil space and otherwise.
So once you then got Deborah within your system, then how did her mates join up? What happened then?
Well, Deborah told people. So Deborah was now an ambassador of actually speaking about what she is doing and why is it important to her. And she found young people who think like her, who are also pursuing different aspects of, their aspirations, but also wanting to contribute towards the community.
All right, fabulous. I'll tell you what, we'll wrap up just now. I'm going to play some public voice notes, but just a quick thought from both of you. Maybe starting with yourself first. Just what does Africa Day mean for you? But the question I asked the others earlier on, how can you use this day as a galvanizing force for the benefit of Africa?
Okay, so Africa Day means to me, it's more than just a celebration. It's an awareness. We get our eyes open and we see what actually means to be Africans and who we are as Africans. Also, to me, it just means the deeper force that goes under what we see as people. Also, as the youth, we get to understand each other more by speaking. And
Okay, yourself?
For me, I feel as if Africa Day, it's more than just a day. It's a symbol and it's a representation of our independence, how we are able to move from colonization, how South Africa is able to move from apartheid. Yes, there are still some aspects of colonization and apartheid that are still within our communities and Africa worldwide. But I feel as if it's how we were able to move from it. And Africa is actually growing now. We are becoming a first world country. And I feel like Africa Day, it's just a resemblance of how we are able to progress and how we are able to move forward. It's more than just, oh, she's from South Africa, she's from Nigeria, but it's more of a thing of we are African. We need to embrace being African. Being African, it's a beautiful thing. Not many people can say, oh, my continent has raw materials. So it's more of a sense of gaining back our independence and making a name for ourselves, not just being African, but being more than African.
Yeah, I think the continent has to assert itself before others want to partner with them on other projects, right? We'll wrap up in a moment. Let's get some voice notes from the public, from listeners, audience, part of the Pulse community. Here we are.
Hi, Ashraf. I think what will help to understand one another is, for instance, if you look at the foreign ministers that have been here doing dialogue with South Africa, besides going to the Kruger National Park, I don't know if they've had any exposure to Alexander and other places where the communities are not as well up as in Sandton. That needs to happen. And also for people here to have the exposure to the other African countries and see people not at Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe, but in the places where people are less privileged, so that they can have a feel and the experience of what people go through there, so that it helps to understand one another. Thank you.
Right, that's one. Let's get to another. Alex, yeah?
Good day, Ashraf. Ashraf, I think South Africans should go back deep into history.
Go back deep into history. And that's a call from the past. Let's see if we can sort that out. We need to play one of those. Let's just see if we can sort that out. I think we're okay with that. As soon as we,
this is Salata from Devon. We love our fellow Africans. We love them. We don't have a problem with them. But you see, going back to the days when we were growing up, we did have some Africans that were living amongst us, but we didn't have so many that in some other places we find that the foreigners are dominant. So that's where the problem is. We have we are short of resources, but we have so many foreigners. Sometimes they even outnumber us.
Okay, let's get to another.
Yeah, Ashraf. Good afternoon. Let me ask you, I see there's this narrative that we are all Africans and we must live together. So if these people goes back to their countries, does that make them less of Africans? Because it seems like they are only Africans when they are here in South Africa. If they go back to their countries, does that make them less of Africans? Thank you.
But how do you know that? How do you know when
hello,
they're here, then they Africans when they're not here and they're in the other countries and they less African? How do you know that?
This Africa is one narrative does not work. We are different people in this in this continent with different cultures, which does not make us one anyway. Yeah. So this thing does not work. People will always be running away from their own countries instead of fixing them and coming to other and running away to other countries with the saying that Africa is one. It's not. We have to get that that we are different people in this continent.
Okay.
Afternoon, Lebogang Konolo, the cool cat from Kimberley. Look, Africa Unite, that sounds very idealistic and the Bob Marley song and all that. But practically, no, man, that seems impossible for me. Even today, we have all these foreigners from all different African countries fleeing this site. They are all here. And if you ask why are they not going home, they say, no, it's not safe, there's war that side, there are problems. How do we unite with under such conditions? Where do we begin? Yo.
Okay, there's another. All right, let's leave it at that, right? Okay, we got like 30 seconds to go. We're going to wrap up. It's news time now, so this is a good way to end up, right? So let me just thank all of you for coming on. Great, and I hope that you inspire us. I feel strongly about building champions, and we want to build a champion nation in South Africa, but a champion continent. For that to happen, you need to inspire these young people you brought along. You need to do that in terms of where you are with your just give me your program once again. Your program, what's it called?
It's I Legacy Human Rights Activations.
Okay, you need to inspire them through that so that we can build the type of formidable leadership that we need as a continent. So thanks for being part of it. And I think for all of us here, it's been a fascinating conversation of this SAFM Africa Day Roundtable. Looking forward maybe to another one next year, May 25. The key part that's come through is that within Africa, it's one continent with multiple voices. And there's no question that you don't ever want to turn the multiple voices into one voice. You actually want to ensure that the diversity of multiple voices reflects the diversity of the African continent. The big question is, how do you multiply the multiple voices into multiple ideas, brilliant, bright ideas, so that we can become this continent of the multitudes, where there's everything in abundance? Can we become an abundance continent? That's the big challenge. And the challenge, in this case, rests with you and I. Thanks for listening. Let's get the news now. Just go on 6 o'clock.
Top stories at 6. Names